And we're back. We are back. Did the chat actually launch this time with it? I don't know why the default settings on YouTube are that there is no live chat, because that's fucking obnoxious. Why would they assume that if I'm doing a live stream, I don't want to live chat with it? Why would that be the default setting? Shouldn't the default setting be the opposite? Shouldn't anybody who's live streaming, wouldn't they think like, I want to sort of interact with people live? It seemed very strange for that to be the default setting. All right, let me see. Oh, here we go. Okay, baby. I'm getting it. I'm getting it. Huh. Okay, so now the chat is obviously working. Fuck YouTube for having the default thing be that it doesn't work. So there's a couple things that I could do today and talk about today. Obviously, I'll answer super chat questions and stuff for a while. I would have done a normal show today, but just like I said the other day on the channel, I had some massive tech problems in the studio, and so I wasn't able to actually do a show in the studio. I needed some stuff to get repaired, and it's actually getting repaired now. Problem is that we needed new parts or some shit, and so the parts have to be shipped in, and then they have to fix stuff, and so basically it's like a full week that I couldn't be in the studio. I know the parts have shipped, but they haven't gotten them yet, so hopefully I'll have all the stuff I need, all the tech stuff I need to be back in the studio by Wednesday, although honestly it's 50-50 as to whether or not I'll be back in the studio by Wednesday. It's very possible that I will not be back in the studio by Wednesday, and in which case, whatever, we'll figure something out. Just like now, I'm going to do this live stream. Man, I had the worst few days, such a terrible stretch of days. So what happened last night / this morning is that my fucking smoke alarm and carbon monoxide alarm went off at 4:30 a.m. So I was asleep, and all of a sudden, and you know how obnoxious those things are. Here, I'm going to try to make the noise, but I'll try to save your guys' ears as I do it. So I'm going to aim my mouth away from the mic. But the noise was like. So imagine waking up from a sound sleep at 4:30, hearing that noise. My brain barely works because my brain barely works anyway. And so I run around, I try to take the thing down. The thing is not coming down. I try to press the button to make it stop making the noise. It doesn't stop making the noise. And so I'm panicking because I'm like, okay, is the fire department going to come? Am I going to wake up my neighbors? Am I actually breathing in carbon monoxide right now or something? Am I going to die and I don't even realize it? And so basically the solution I came up with was literally rip the smoke detector / carbon monoxide detector out of the wall. Rip it out. It was in there with the screw and I just ripped it right out. Okay. So that was one of the things I did. Then it still wouldn't stop beeping. See, I thought maybe it was plugged in and, there was a wire, no wire. It was just, it's battery operated. I couldn't figure out how to take the batteries out. When you're hearing the noise, you're operating like a monkey. You can't read directions or anything. So the solution I came up with, because I'm a genius, is let me take this smoke detector, let me put it under a whole bunch of pillows and blankets to just muffle the sound. And that's what I did. So I put it under there. The thing kept beeping even then. Now, granted, it was low enough where it wasn't an issue, a serious issue. And what happened then, it was by that time, it was 5 a.m. or something. I text my neighbor who, his dad is a fireman. And I texted him thinking he'll text me in 3 or 4 hours when he wakes up. No, to my surprise, he was able to text me back right then. And so he came by, he took a look, he eventually spoke to his dad, and his dad said, don't worry. It wasn't actually carbon monoxide because there would be signs X, Y, and Z. If it was carbon monoxide, I didn't have those signs. The beeping would be like this. If it was carbon monoxide, it wasn't like what he said it would be. I aired out the house anyway, but that was quite a way to wake up. And then I got a little bit more sleep after that. I fell back asleep for like an hour or so, but man, that was rough. Now imagine dealing with that. So really running on fumes here, didn't get much sleep. And that's on top of still worrying about the studio and the tech stuff that's not working and trying to get that up and running, because you guys know the way secular talk works. Like, I like to constantly pump out content. I like to have, like 6 videos Monday and Tuesday, 6 videos Wednesday and Thursday, maybe sprinkle in some more. You got the Crystal Kyle and Friends stuff. And it just, basically handcuffed me from doing all that. So I've been trying to figure out how to put everything together. I'm a very schedule oriented guy. When my schedule breaks, I'm in a shitty mood. So I've been in a shitty mood, obviously, for a while. So hopefully everything gets, back up and running soon. Hopefully the tech is fixed and I can do a normal show on Wednesday. Again, it's 50-50. We'll see whether or not that happens. But for now, we're filling in the meantime with some live stream action for you guys. I know a while ago I had promised to do these like once every couple weeks or whatever, and I haven't been able to follow through on that. Man, I really wish I could, but the travel part is killing me. I'm going to you guys know I'm traveling to DC all the time to do Crystal Kyle and Friends. We're trying to do it real official, real special, in studio, give everybody a nice, viewer experience. There's a professionalism level that we like to hit. Crystal does that already on Rising. So, the travel is the thing that's been killing me, and I haven't been able to do much of these live streams because I'm just shot 24/7. But here we go. We got a live stream going, albeit under some pretty horrendous circumstances, if I don't say so myself. So I have the chat up. I see you guys are sending me some super chats. That is a terrible picture of me. Holy shit. I look like I have a giraffe neck in that shit. Oh my God. Ugh. I wish I retook that picture and didn't send out that picture. I look like Tom Cotton with his bitch ass, skinny ass giraffe neck. Okay, that's another thing that put me in a bad mood. God damn it. Anyway, I see your super chats. I have them pulled up on the side here in the pop out chat. Is this the way? I don't think this is the way I could access everyone. I'm going to try to get to the thing where I can access everyone. Obviously, I don't remember how to do it because, again, I'm an idiot. But I might be able to figure it out. Let me see. We did this last time. Somebody walked me through pulling up all of the super chats as I was live, because of course everybody knows I'm a colossal boomer, even though I'm technically not a boomer. So let's see. If I can't figure this out within like 2 minutes, then I'll just go to the pop-up chat over there on the side and go through it that way. I did have some stories that I could have talked to you guys about. In fact, I might actually do that at some point, but I know you guys probably want some questions answered as well. So I'll try to get to the questions ASAP. All right. Let me see it. Yeah, this has the timing feature on it. All right, I'm just going to jump into the super chats that we got in the pop out window. Does the pop out window give me every super chat? Okay, don't know. Anyway, here we go. Palestine will be free. Just FYI for the American people, please be on the right side of history. It's your tax money that's been abused. Keep it up, Kyle. Thank you, Queen Mina. Don't know how to pronounce that. I apologize. But yes, I hope that Palestinians are free for sure. And there's a ceasefire that was announced, everybody knows, but don't know if it's going to hold. And I also heard that they're rounding up many Palestinians. The IDF is rounding up a bunch of Palestinians. So even though there's a ceasefire, there's still the second-class citizenship and third-class citizenship and then stuff like that happening. Do you think Ross Ulbrich should be pardoned? I don't know who Ross Ulbrich is. So fortunately, I can't answer that. Hey, Kyle, what is your thoughts on Russia's aggressive foreign policy in places like Ukraine, South Ossetia, and the rest of the former Soviet sphere? So that's actually a really interesting question, because there was the Soviet Union was dissolved. And so then you had all these these countries that were formerly part of the Soviet Union that are now independent countries. Do I think those countries should remain free? Of course, it's whatever they want. If they want to remain free, they should remain free. If they want to become part of what is modern day Russia. They should be able to become part of modern day Russia. So that's my position on that. But, I feel like NATO is a problem because it keeps creeping closer and closer to Russia's border, even though originally they promised they wouldn't do that. And so, I just feel like oftentimes in the West, we immediately blame Russia and we view everything they do as by definition offensive and everything we do as by definition defensive. And I don't agree with that. I think you have to look at everything on a case-by-case basis. And in the case of Russia, we have been aggressive in making NATO creep closer and closer to Russia's borders. Having said that, if the former Soviet bloc states want to remain independent, I think they have the right to do that, and they should be able to do that. Kyle, I'm thinking about running for Congress in Ohio. Do you think I should run as a Democrat or for the People's Party? Also, any idea who I can contact for help? So I'm out of the official politics game. Everybody knows I resigned from Justice Democrats a long time ago, so I don't know who you can contact for help. But my advice to you, even though a lot of people might not like this, is obviously if you want to win, you run as a Democrat. I mean, we all want it to be the case that a third party can win, whether it's People's Party, Green Party, or whatever. But, let's get serious. There are 0 People's Party members in Congress, 0 in the Senate. I think there's 0, maybe even at the state and local level, although I could be wrong about that. Maybe some low-level position was elected somewhere. Even the Green Party has next to definitely nobody at the national level, but even at the state level, there's next to nobody. So, let's be serious. If you want to win right now, you run as a Democrat, even though we all hate Democrats. Like, it is what it is. Like, we could try to pretend like third parties have a good shot at winning right now, but that's just nonsense. It's not true. Somebody said, keep up the good work and donated $50. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's a very kind donation. Kyle, please upgrade your studio and old laptop and your outdated visual arts. I think you can do better. We, the community, can help if needed. Yeah, so it's funny that you say that because I actually just reached out to somebody today, somebody whose work I've seen and I really like and respect, and I basically asked them to be the thumbnail person for Secular Talk. So, I'm thinking about certain things and new way to do things. I mean, honestly, the reason why I haven't done things in a new way for so long is because I don't really care about the bells and whistles of YouTube. I care about talking about things that matter and are important and talking about them in a way that's accurate and objective and, giving my take. Obviously I have opinions, but, delivering a certain level of quality in terms of the content. I don't really care about the bells and whistles, but having said that, the bells and whistles have now become phenomenally important on YouTube. And, it makes it so that you can increase your view count by a lot if you do certain things. So I guess I have to play the game reluctantly in certain ways. So new thumbnails might be part of that. The studio itself is not really outdated, so I don't know why you would bring up the studio in that context. And you guys paid for it, so I'm actually really proud of that studio, and we crowdfunded for it, and it's awesome. I have a number of laptops and work things for the show. That's not the problem with Secular Talk from a design perspective. That's not the problem with Secular Talk from a work perspective. But suffice to say, like I said, there's certain things that I'm interested in now and I'm sort of working on, one of them being thumbnails. So there might be some new thumbnails coming soon, a new way of doing thumbnails. And I hope all you guys like it when we finally get all that ironed out. But just so you know, changes are actually very difficult to make. It takes a while to do some very basic things that you would think you could do quickly. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the business. Have you and Crystal ever considered having Peter Joseph on your show? We haven't, but I would consider him now that you mentioned him. I know he did the Zeitgeist film. I think I saw that and had issues with it, but he's definitely somebody who I would talk to and have on the show, and I'll talk to Crystal. I'm sure she'd be willing to have him as well. Give me some of that sweet, sweet, I'm Ted Cruz. Me, I'm Ted Cruz. Me. I need some energy to get through this Monday. It's funny that gives you energy. That gives me cancer. You're a part of my nightly routine at work. Love your content. I'm an education major, but I want to get involved in politics. Any advice? If you're an education major, but you want to get involved in politics, you should probably maybe teach political science in a university or something. I mean, I think that'd be a very fulfilling job. Basically doing, important work and doing it in the context of a classroom. I mean, there's Nothing wrong with that. I think that's a wonderful idea. And I think it would make you feel very fulfilled and make you feel like you're doing something that's really important, because that is important. Ross Ulbrich is the founder of Silk Road. Also, go Sixers. Wrong. Go Knicks, Eric. Go Knicks. They had a heartbreaking loss last night. I hate Trae Young. The Knicks need to trade Ntilikina, or however you say his name, because he let Trae Young sort of blow right by him in a crucial play. The founder of Silk Road, yeah. So I know Silk Road was like the underground website where you could buy like drugs and all types of stuff, and it had a bad rap, and the Fed sort of cracked down on it in a way that was unfair. So would I consider talking to that guy? Sure, absolutely. Will you and Crystal be interviewing lefty congressional candidates as we get closer to 2022? Thanks for the great work, man. Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate the contribution. Lefty candidates in 2022. I don't know. I haven't had that conversation with her yet. We have a list that's like insanely long of people that she's into, like a lot of authors. And then when she tells me about these authors and like what their field of interest is, then I get interested in them because her and I have similar interests after she explains. So we have to get through the list of everybody that's already on it. But it's very possible that we talk to congressional candidates as people who we're interested in. But I will say, Crystal Kyle and Friends is not primarily political. A lot of the stuff we end up talking about is political, but it's not primarily that. Like, in fact, the original idea was like to branch out into things that her and I normally wouldn't talk about on our respective shows. So we're going to. But having said that, we will. If there's somebody who particularly interests us, we probably will end up having them on the show. Kyle, how do you justify being a free speech absolutist? This is a good question. With also wanting to muzzle tobacco and pharmaceutical ads, what is your argument for $15 being a living wage as opposed to another amount? The $15 amount always seemed rather arbitrary to me. So let me answer your second question first. You're right. It is somewhat arbitrary. And I've said on the show a number of times, longtime listeners will know this, that my actual position on the minimum wage is I think you should do a living wage either per voting district or per county. So in other words, you might have a minimum wage that's $26 in New York City, but you might have a minimum wage that's $9.50 in Wyoming. All I care about is that it's a living wage, and that needs to be calculated in places all around the country. And it's going to be very different in different parts of the country. I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that. I like that idea. I want it to be a living wage everywhere. So to answer your question, is the $15 amount arbitrary? Yes, it absolutely is arbitrary, but it is sort of like a stand-in for, what I think the ideal solution is, which is to do it by county or voting district, and it would be variable across the country. So $15 an hour isn't even my ideal, but if you say $15 an hour or keep it as it is, I'm obviously taking $15 an hour. And to answer your question about being a free speech absolutist, I mean, I view ads about tobacco or big pharma ads, I view this as a regulation issue. So I don't view it as a free speech issue. In the same way that a product can't go out there and just lie about the product and then sell it, how that's fraud and that's not allowed. And so there are rules around what you can say when you're pitching a product. That's part and parcel of regulating the marketplace. So I view this as regulating the marketplace. So I don't really view it as a free speech issue. If a tobacco CEO wants to give an interview and say whatever he wants to say about, I think our product is awesome, and I don't even think it gives you cancer, they have the right to do that, and they're not going to be locked up, and that's correct. But ads are a totally different thing. I guess I would say you don't have a right to ad space. Can somebody who wants to be a serial killer, advertise themselves as a hitman and put an ad out on the local news channel? No, of course they wouldn't be allowed to. Does that violate free speech? I would argue no. Is there criteria that would make somebody not allowed on Crystal Kyle and Friends? Would you ever have people on that don't necessarily agree with your views, whether it be right, centrist, or other? No, so it's just whoever Crystal and I are interested in. Those are the people who get allowed on Crystal Kyle and Friends. It's, whoever we want to talk to. But to answer your question, are there going to be people who we disagree with on things? Of course, there absolutely are. I mean, we had on Andrew Yang, and we pressed him hard on his views on Israel-Palestine, for example. So, I mean, we've already had on people that we don't necessarily agree with on things. I'm sure we'll have on more in the future. In fact, we're doing like I don't know how much of this I'm supposed to tell you guys, but we're actually recording like 3 separate Crystal Kyle and Friends this week. And so we're doing way more than normal, and we're doing it because we have things coming up in the future and we need to pre-record some stuff. But anyway, I digress from that. That's a long conversation. We don't need to get into all the details of that. The bottom line is one of the guests this week is Vosh. And Vosh has been incredibly critical of Crystal, incredibly critical of me. But, you know, he's lucky that Crystal likes him and I like him. And so we're interested in him, even though he's had very harsh critiques of us. So we're going to have him on and we'll talk to him about what he does. But then we're also going to, you know, get into the topics where we disagree. So the answer is, of course, we're going to have on some people we disagree with. It's just a matter of who we're interested in. There's some people who we disagree with who we're not interested in. Like, do I want Sean Hannity on Crystal Kyle and Friends? No, he can fuck off. But if I think somebody's an honest actor and they disagree and I'm interested in them, then of course we'll have them on. And, you know, same with Crystal. Please go read Marx already, or someone who explains it better. Ask Richard Wolff or something. So we did a Crystal Kyle and Friends with Richard Wolff, and it was a phenomenal episode. So please go watch that. And this person goes on to say, it will save you several decades of political evolution and ultimately get you to the same place. I don't know that that's true. I don't think everybody's a robot where they read something and they immediately are like, I agree with all of this, or it moves me in position X, Y, or Z. Some people have a backlash effect. Some people take it in and then don't move in the way that you necessarily want them to move. But I will say this, and this is a point I've made previously. I think people who are obsessed with theory and always want to talk about theory, that's not stuff that wins elections. Now, should you know stuff about theory? Absolutely. Should you know the concepts? Absolutely. Should you be educated on the topics? Absolutely. But I find there's a certain subset of lefties who are like obsessed with theory and always talking about theory and bringing up like Marx and Lenin and whoever, fill in the blank. And they're really insular and unappealing to me. And so that's just my style. Now, there are some people who are going to like the theory stuff and going to latch onto that and become part of that community. I'm not judging you. You go do whatever you want to do. All I'm saying is that's not for me. And so I like talking about things in terms of the common man. So I like having Richard Wolff on because Richard Wolff explains things in a very simplistic way. I'm a very big fan of making things as simple as possible. And a lot of people who talk about theory tend to do the exact opposite. Hey, Kyle, I don't see any leftist YouTubers who speak Spanish. There should be a version of you in Spanish. Carlos, there should be, yes. So hopefully, maybe it's you. Somebody should hop in that lane and go for it. You know, the more the merrier on left YouTube. I don't view this as a competition with other lefty YouTubers. As long as they're spreading a good message, I wish them all the success in the world. Hey, man, thanks for all the work you do, and hopefully one day you can cover the colonial situation in Puerto Rico. We are struggling with U.S. control since 1898. It's interesting you say that because my understanding was that when you look at the polling numbers in Puerto Rico, that there's a lot of them who actually want to become a U.S. state, and there's some, I guess, that want to make it independent. But yes, there's like the idea of this middle ground is like a U.S. territory does strike me as pretty exploitative. So that is an interesting topic and one that I could see myself doing a deeper dive on at some point. What do you think of Tulsi Gabbard now? Why do you think she has been going down the right-wing path after the primary? I don't know. I mean, I think she's just a strange person with heterodox views. And my opinion on her is pretty much that of most lefties now, where there are many things she did where I'm like, but you lost me, but you lost me again, but you lost me again. Now she's talking more about the culture war than the wars. And I simply do not give a fuck about the culture war. Couldn't care any less about it. I think a lot of it's a distraction from the economic war and the people who are really screwing you. And if she wants to go down that path, hey, it's her prerogative, but it's not the path I'm going to go down. And I find it honestly rather silly. Do you think the left is too woke and or moving backwards on social issues, being racist towards white people, for example? I think the left is too woke, yes, but just in terms of the terminology that's used. In terms of the actual policy positions, I think the left is correct. You understand what I'm saying? So like on all the actual issues themselves, like trans rights, like legalizing, taxing, and regulating marijuana and freeing all the nonviolent drug offenders. Like, so you go down the list of the actual policy issues. I think the left is correct. In terms of how they talk about a lot of these things, I think they are too woke. I think you do a much better job attracting people and expanding your coalition if you talk about things in a very inclusive way. and talk about all of us in it together and talk about class and talk about solidarity. And unfortunately, the left is getting more and more sectarian, where people become obsessed with their own identities, whether it be racial or religious or gender oriented or otherwise. So I do think they're too woke and too insular in the terminology that they use and too sectarian. On the actual policy issues, I think they're correct. Do I think they're racist towards white people? I think that's a stretch. I don't think that they're racist towards white people. So I would just get a little bit more out of the insular bubble where people become obsessed with their identities, because I feel like that's the path to hell is paved with good intentions, and you could end up having some rather silly beliefs if you go down that path. We should focus on the things that bring us solidarity and class consciousness and talk about the universal programs that would help everybody. Again, that doesn't mean that the left position on social issues isn't correct. I think they are correct, but the things that you put front and center and push for should be the universal solutions, the class-focused solutions, the universal healthcare, universal education, ending the wars, freeing the nonviolent drug offenders, legalizing drugs, because these are things that impact everybody. They're primarily universal and class issues, but they also bring about racial justice, gender justice, so on and so forth. So anyway, that's my take on that. You're a matter of fact guy, Kyle. You're a matter of fact guy, Kyle. You always seem to see right through people's nonsense. Thank you. I really appreciate that comment, and I swear to everybody else listening, I did not plant that, even though it sounds like I did. Elections don't matter when politicians are owned by the same vested interests. Even yes, we can equals Wall Street bailout as millions lost everything. The last part is true. Yes, we can did equal Wall Street bailouts as millions lost everything. So Obama was a standard neoliberal hack in many ways. But I wouldn't say elections don't matter. I think they do matter. Even though the differences between the Democrats and Republicans are minor, I think they matter colossally ultimately. That doesn't mean Democrats are good and Republicans are bad. But to say they don't matter, I think is a little bit of a stretch. I'm not really an anti-electoralism guy. I see why people would go down that path, and I'm somewhat sympathetic because I think that the system has screwed people so much that some people tap out. Like, I get it, but I still think that that's overstating it a little bit. What are your thoughts on Larry David as Bernie Sanders? Pretty solid. I can't imagine anybody else doing it better, to be honest. What do you think about prisoners in the U.S. having the right to universal health care with it being funded very similar to how the NHS is funded? This is an actual reality, not a theory. So I don't know. I got to be honest with you guys. I don't know the specifics of how people who are in prison get their health care. I would imagine it's taxpayer funded because when you're in prison, everything is taxpayer funded in there. I don't know about the quality of care. I don't know about the level of doctors that they're getting. I also know a lot of people in prisons in the U.S. have to do forced labor. Slavery is basically legal in prisons in this country. But yeah, I mean, to your point, obviously every American should have, access to, not access, because that's the weasel word, should have free healthcare, full stop. And we should copy the NHS. We should copy the Canadian system. There's a variety of ways to do universal healthcare. We should do any of the ways that work, and most of them work. And we don't do that. And so people end up going bankrupt because of medical bills. But yeah, somebody in prison. There are people who've committed crimes to go to prison to get healthcare. There's been a number of stories like that to show you how messed up our system is. Do you think DSA, Justice Democrats, Congress-elect should have YouTube in which they should debate those that disagree with them on policy and control discussion? I mean, first thing I'll say is I would hope that DSA and Justice Democrats made better decisions, because I don't think that they're necessarily good at what they're supposed to be doing. That's the first thing I'll say. I think they're actually pretty bad at what they're supposed to be doing. But should they have people who are the faces of those organizations that then debate the tactics and explain their positions? I think that's a great idea. And, that was the original idea behind Justice Democrats, me and Cenk being co-founders. We were very aggressive in pushing it and trying to steer it the way we wanted it to go. And, obviously that didn't work out for a variety of reasons. But to answer your question, yes, I think that's a good idea. I think you need intelligent public spokespeople for the idea and the movement in order to make it more appealing. And they don't really have that. I know you hate intersectional terminology, but if you agree with the left's social aims, why don't you do segments about BLM's goals or how one should reform the police? What are your thoughts on this? So that's a great question. What I will say to you is I absolutely did do that, and I did it at the beginning. So what was it called? Campaign Zero. So I've done segments on the original Black Lives Matter movement and what their goals were, and I've done segments flat out agreeing with it and going through all the reforms they were calling for and explaining which ones I agree with and disagree with. I agree with almost every single one of them. The original Black Lives Matter movement, they had a website called Campaign Zero. I think that website is still up. So type in Campaign Zero and then find the one related to Black Lives Matter, and that's what I agree with, what they were pushing for. So I have done those segments and I have talked about them. If I haven't talked about it as much recently, it's because I talked about it when it first came out and I stated my position. And, I focus on what's in the news, and what's in the news that comes around more often are the stuff that I end up covering. So I have done the thing that you're asking for, but perhaps it was before you started watching the show on a regular basis. Running as a Dem might be good for winning initially, but not for winning once elected. Look at all the fail the Squad and Bernie have racked up with a trifecta and historic conditions on their side. I have many criticisms of the Squad. I have many criticisms of Bernie, but I simply do not agree with the idea that it's somehow in the nature of running as a Democrat that you're going to get corrupted. In fact, I vehemently disagree with that idea. If that was the case, FDR wouldn't have been FDR. FDR, in many ways, was a colossally successful president. Obviously, in many ways, he was terrible with Japanese internment and all that stuff, but the New Deal was incredible. There's nothing inherent about running under a banner that makes you corrupted. It's like, I hate when people say that thing like, oh, you're sheepdogging people into a dead party. I've heard a number of people say that. People I agree with, people on other things, people I respect. But I don't give a fuck about the label or the banner that you're running under. I don't care as long as you win. And all I'm saying is it is objectively true. It is factual that if you run under the banner of one of the two major parties, you're more likely to win. That's not anything that anybody could argue with. And if you try to argue with it, you're just fucking wrong because you got to crunch the numbers. It's a math question. And when we look at the math, it's like, oh, okay, if you want to win in this country, you got to run as a Democrat or a Republican. Yes, is it theoretically possible that in multiple decades, maybe RC Cola will overtake Pepsi and Coca-Cola? I guess. Is it likely to happen or not? It's definitely not likely to happen. And I don't know why people want to delude themselves. If you're a realist about politics, and I consider myself a hardcore realist about politics, you bite the bullet and you run on one of the two major political parties, and that's how you fucking win. Now, yes, are there pressures once you're in there that pull you in bad directions? Absolutely. But there would be pressures that pull you in bad directions even if you won as a Green Party person or a People's Party person. It's not inherent to just the label of Democrat or Republican that's going to make you shitty. Perhaps it's what happens with human beings once they get positions of power, that all these negative influences start pulling them in different directions, whether it's special interests or lobbyists or the moneyed interests or whatever. So just do the thing that's more likely to get you to win as soon as possible. So I'm incredibly pragmatic and realistic about that. And I find a lot of people on the left who otherwise are very pragmatic and realistic, they just want to have this magical thought of like, we'll just swoop in with a party I just pulled out of my ass 7 minutes ago and take over the whole country in a year or two. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. But having said that, yes, I think all the criticisms that you're implying there for Bernie and the Squad, I think those criticisms are correct. But that doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater. That means that you actually win and have principled people. Like if I ran as a Democrat or a fucking Republican and I won, I wouldn't be making those mistakes. So it's not inherent to being a Democrat or Republican that makes you fuck up. It's the nature of power and the nature of corruption and no matter what party, or even if you ran as an independent and weren't affiliated with a party, no matter what happens, you're going to have those negative influences. So it's a matter of having principle and overriding that. And it's very hard for anybody to do that because, usually when you're in a disgusting, decrepit, rotten place like DC, the culture changes you. But again, it would change you regardless of what your label is. I find the label largely irrelevant. I don't know what this one means. Will you ever read What We Write to Lilith? I like your coverage of foreign policy, but Taliban do not control more territory now than before 2001. So I got that fact. I believe it was from a Washington Post article or some other article about 2 or 3 years ago. Maybe that changed and maybe it dropped since then. But at the time I read that article, that's exactly what the case was, that the Taliban had control of more territory than they did when we first invaded in 2001. Will you be willing to have a discussion sometime somewhere about the fact that there are over 1 million registered sex offenders? and the impact this is having. No one will touch this. I don't know what that means. There's over 1 million registered sex offenders, and nobody will touch that topic. There we go. We just touched it. Weird phrase for this conversation. But what are you implying? I don't know what you're implying. Are you implying that the sex offender registry list is not good? Or are you implying that all these people should be in prison? Or I don't know what you're implying, but your fact is now out there for sure. The Republican Party was a third party when it was established. Listen, to Stay Human, who sent me this. If you want to try to run as a People's Party person or a Green Party person, by all means, go right ahead. Let me know how it goes. And if you're running on policies I agree with, I'll vote for you. But just don't be delusional about, like, if I run as a People's Party person or a Green Party person now, somehow some president will win in that party. It's not going to fucking happen. Or you're going to get some majority in Congress or the Senate. It's not going to fucking happen. Or you're even going to get a small block that can use their leverage. That's not going to fucking happen either. So if you want to try it, go ahead. But stop kidding yourself that this is like some sort of realist position. This is fucking pie in the sky. And if your response to this is, oh yeah, but the squad is failing too. Agreed. There's no disagreement on that. But what I'm saying is the thing you're proposing as a solution is not actually a solution. That's not going to fucking happen. So just stop being silly about it. That's my point. It's like in every other way, you can't be a, facts come first kind of person. And then in this one very particular small way, you're like, this is the answer. And even though there's no evidence it's going to fucking work, I'm going to cling to it in a religious type way. I mean, just be realistic about what you're trying to do here. I mean, I don't want to make people nihilistic or whatever, but I think you should always do the thing that's more likely to make you win now. So if you want to try the thing that's even harder, okay, go ahead. But you're really not going to have any success, and it's going to be sad. Just wanted to say, since I discovered your channel early in 2016 primary, I've watched all your videos, and you were the main factor in my political awakening. Your next seltzer is on me. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And again, everybody, I swear I did not plant that comment. It might sound like I did. It's always very awkward sitting here sucking myself off, but the comments are what they are. I think there's usually a relatively equal number of like positive and negative. But thank you for that. I really appreciate that. It's a very sweet comment. Are you aware that animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change and emerging pandemic diseases? The climate change thing, I know that it's like a very small number of companies that's responsible for some ridiculous percentage of the emissions. I knew that. I don't think I knew it was the emerging pandemic disease problem. Oh, and on that topic, apparently Dr. Fauci even admitted that, like, maybe this didn't originate in a wet market in Wuhan. Maybe it has some non-natural origins. So even Fauci is now saying, like, yeah, the lab leak theory kind of may be true. PolitiFact had to retract a fact check they did where they dismissed that theory as some sort of fringe conspiracy stuff. So, and I know a lot of you guys disagreed with me on that when I covered the CNN segment and the former CDC head who was like, I think it came from the virology lab in Wuhan, which was studying this stuff. So just follow the evidence. That's my, advice to people. And sometimes the evidence leads you to an agnostic position. Fair enough. But don't cling to something in a religious, cultish kind of way because you prefer it be true for whatever other reasons. So anyway, that's a random side rant, but there you have it, guys. According to Armin, he says, animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change and emerging pandemic diseases. I agree with your vid with the left's messaging being woke, but one nitpick is that cisgender is like saying straight and shouldn't be compared to Latinx. I know that cisgender means straight. I know that. But my point is nobody really says cisgender and nobody really says Latinx among normal people in the real world. And when I say normal people in the real world, let me be clear, I mean including LGBTQ people and people of all different races and religions and backgrounds. So that's my point, is that the terminology is not used by many people. It's a very insular little group that uses it, just like Latinx. So it's an analogy. It's not to say that being straight is comparable to being, Latino. That's not the argument that I'm making. I hope one day your government will end the embargo against us, the Cuban people. Hello from Cuba. Well, hello, Andres. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I totally agree with you. In fact, I think that one of the best things Obama did was try to normalize relations with Cuba and, move us back in the right direction on that front. And then Trump came in and reversed it. And Biden obviously is doing Dickie McGee's acts on that front. But I agree with you. I think we should totally end the embargo, normalize relations. It'll obviously help the Cuban economy, and it'll make it so we're not terrible pricks who are holding a grudge from decades ago and holding some Cold War nonsense. So totally agree with you on that. The USDA also protects dairy and meat industries because they are receiving money from them, and they lie about the health effects of those. Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate that. Do you believe people should withhold support from the Squad Justice Democrats until they actually fight for popular policies? I don't know what you mean about support. Do I donate to any of them anymore? No, I don't. In terms of would you vote for them if they're up against some Republican? I'm going to leave that ball in your court. You guys decide what you want to do. You guys know I have a very mixed opinion on the lesser evil voting debate. And I don't think anybody really has the right answer on that. I will say this, anybody who's under the illusion that they're going to be primary, like somebody's going to primary AOC from her left and that person's going to win, I think that's incredibly naive. I do. But I do think we should basically do everything we can to force them to fight for popular policies, because but honestly, I think they're almost too far gone at this point. I think they've been DC has changed them so much and rotted their brains so much that they would honestly argue to our faces, like, no, you don't get it. We're the ones who are doing the intelligence strategy, even though we have nothing to show for it. So what I would say is pretty much do whatever you can to try to hold them accountable and make them do the things we sent them there to do. But I'm under no illusions as to whether or not that'll actually work. I think that even they are too far gone at this point, which is really pathetic. Why don't lefties condemn violence in BLM as strongly as the Capitol Hill siege? I think the reason why lefties aren't out there condemning riots all the time, particularly when it's BLM or affiliated lefty groups doing it, is because they do believe in that context that a riot is the language of the unheard. So in other words, they think there's more of a reason to do it in that case, because they say, hey, cops are killing black people all across this country, and nothing's ever done to change it. Very rarely is there justice. Every now and then you get one, the Walter Scott case, the Chauvin case. So, but most of the time there is no justice. And when there's not justice, they say, hey, no justice, no peace. Okay. So in other words, it's kind of like saying, oh, the cops can break the law willy-nilly and take away human lives. Okay, well, we could break the law too, and we'll do it in a less bad way, which is destroying property, right? So I think that's why. I think that's the argument that somebody would give, that not all violence is created equal. Political violence depends on what the actual cause is. Do you agree with the cause or disagree with the cause? So I don't think that lefties necessarily have a principled belief against violence full stop. I think a lot of them say political violence makes sense in certain circumstances and doesn't in other circumstances. So that's my answer to your question. I will say this. I do sort of agree with your premise, even though many lefties would take issue with your premise. Like, I do think they're on the left, they're more willing to overlook property violence that's happening in the name of left-wing things. Just like on the right, they're willing to act like they're pretending like the thing that happened on January 6th wasn't even them. They're pretending like it's Antifa or something, pretending to be right-wingers. So there is this thing, there is this instinct for people to like defend their teams, and I think that's the heart of what's going on there. Do you think social democracy addresses ending imperialism and the theft of wealth resources in developing nations enough? That's a great question. So my version of social democracy does. Is it possible to set up a social democratic state that doesn't have the same foreign policy that I have? Sure. Like you could set up a country that has universal health care, free college, a living wage, paid time off, free childcare, fill in the blank. You could set up a thriving social democracy that in its borders is wonderful, but then they are imperialistic and they bomb other places and they occupy other places. That theoretically can happen, of course. But obviously, needless to say, my version of social democracy, the type of government that I think would be wonderful, necessitates also doing the foreign policy stuff better, not doing illegal offensive invasions, not occupying places, not arming human rights abusers, not engaging in human rights abuses. So my version of it is not that. My version of it necessitates justice overseas too. And what I would say is, with the money that you're saving that you would otherwise be spending doing imperialist stuff, you can use those funds to, continue to have an awesome welfare system at home and social safety net here at home and a reasonable floor here at home. So that would be my answer to that. I was indifferent on January 6th because the overreaction is crazy, because if the left went for general strike, nonviolent, I wouldn't care, but these politicians would view the workers just like MAGA. Okay? I don't think I grasped all of that, but there you go. Everybody can hear it. You might find this hard to believe, Kyle, but I learned more about how federal income tax from you than anywhere else. See, that actually makes me sad to hear that. It really does. And it makes me sad because I'm a moron. Like, I'm really not that smart. Like, I view myself as a normal dude. I really do. I view myself as a completely normal guy who just happens to be interested in politics. But yeah, like, when I learned what a marginal income tax was, I was like, holy shit, I got to share this as much as possible, because that wasn't my percent. The way I thought taxes worked was, if the tax rate said 70%, then you're paying 70% of your money. That's not how it works. 70% marginal tax rate means every dollar over a certain dollar threshold is taxed at 70%. Everything below that is taxed at a lower rate, and everything below that next line is taxed at a lower rate. So yeah, it's sad that you learn more from me about how the federal income tax works, or federal taxes work, than CNN or anybody who actually knows this stuff. It says a lot about how our system is almost made to not educate you. You know what I mean? Our system is made to sort of mislead you or keep you in the dark. And that it's a shame, and I hate it. Hi, Kyle. It'll be fun to hear what you all do behind the scenes on Crystal, Kyle, and Friends. So I'm happy that you say that, because here's the deal. I don't know how many of you saw the most recent episode. Or was this on the most recent episode? I don't know. We said it at some point. But anyway. So we are losing on Substack to Barry Weiss. Barry Weiss is terrible. She's a complete hack. She, is a huge defender of Israel, even when they're murdering Palestinian babies. I mean, she wrote a thing the other day that went viral because she basically said, like, part and parcel of Zionism, some Palestinian kids are going to die. And what are you going to do? Like, I'm paraphrasing, and maybe I'm being slightly hyperbolic, but not really. Like, that really was the gist of what she was saying. It's like, it's a tragedy, but it's going to happen. And what are you going to do? So she is beating Crystal and I on Substack. That cannot stand. That makes me miserable. I want to cry when I hear that. I want to commit seppuku when I hear that, or harikari, or whatever else you guys called it. So for people who subscribe on Substack to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends, I think the link's in the video description box, although I don't know, because I don't know if this has the defaults in it. I don't know if a live stream has the defaults. Click the link in the video description box if it's there for Crystal, Kyle, and Friends. If not, pull up another tab, go to Google, and then type in Crystal, Kyle, and Friends Substack. Click it. If you pay the $5 a month to get every video, and remember, if you don't want the video, you don't have to pay the $5 a month. You get the free audio version a day later. That's totally fine. But if you pay the $5 a month and get the video, eventually, if we get enough people, we will surpass Barry Weiss. What we're going to do is, when we surpass Barry Weiss, all the paying subscribers are going to get an awesome behind-the-scenes video, and you're going to see exactly what you're asking for. You're going to see me and Crystal and the guys that we work with. We work with some awesome guys, Eric and Chuck. You can see the control room. You can see the studio. You'll see what me and Crystal do before the show. So we're going to record an awesome behind-the-scenes video that only the paying subscribers are going to get. So get us in front of Barry Weiss, man. My ego cannot take the hit that Barry Weiss is beating me at fucking anything. Never mind the fact that she's beating me on Substack, which is insane. So Crystal and I are in pain over that. But anyway, that's the answer to your question. You will get a behind-the-scenes video. It'll be when we surpass Barry Weiss. We're number, like, what number are we? 14 or 13, and she's number 11 or something on Substack. So get us in front of her. I don't know how many more we need, but Crystal seems to think we need a lot more subs. So get on that, and then you'll see that behind-the-scenes video that you're asking for. Have you been flying down or driving every week to DC for KKF? Gotten any more comfortable with flying in recent years? The answer is no, I haven't gotten more comfortable with flying, and I am driving down every week. And I've become a bit of a pro at it, but it's just time consuming. So I listen to podcasts as I drive down. That's the gist of it. It's basically 4 hours, maybe 4.5 on a bad day. But yeah, I've been driving and I still hate flying just as much as ever. Has Vosh's interview with Crystal Kyle and Friends been set up? Yes, it has. Love your stuff. You were my first real experience with leftist media. Don't always agree with you, but always going to appreciate that. Timothy, I want to say thank you very much for that comment. I love that comment. And here's the reason why. Guys, you don't have to agree with me all the time. I don't want you to agree with me all the time. If you agree with me all the time, what that says is you're latching on to my personality more than evaluating my statements independently and coming to your own conclusions. Okay? So I don't expect you to agree with me all the time. I expect you to dissent sometimes, you know? If somebody agrees with me 80 to 90%, I feel like that's the sweet spot. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me 100% of the time or disagree with me 70% of the time, you're wrong. Okay, let me just get that out of the way. But yeah, you should disagree with me on certain things. You're a human being. You don't have the same life experience I have. I don't have the same life experience you have. We've read different things in our lives. We've thought about things in different ways. You shouldn't agree with me 100% of the time. So I appreciate when people say, hey, I like you even though I don't always agree with you. I always feel like that's one of the nicest compliments. And again, to answer your question, yes, it has been set up with Vosh. We're talking to him this week. I don't know if he's one that's releasing this week or if it's next week, because again, we're recording 3 different ones this week. So, but anyway, I'll update everybody on that and give you the specifics. But yes, it's set up. Kyle, if the lab leak turns out to be true, do you think we will all see retaliation given American negative opinion against China keeps increasing? No, because one of the theories or some of the evidence of the lab leak theory is that actually the U.S. government was partially involved in funding this research, which is arguably why they were trying to hide the fact that the lab leak theory could be true, because we were partaking in it. Some of the funding came from the U.S. government. So, we're part of the problem in that sense. So it is possible that it's used for, more propaganda against China to make Americans hate China more, to more feed this new Cold War with China and Russia. It's possible it's used that way, but it shouldn't be used that way. And also, if it's factual, you should be able to talk about the facts of it and also separate out the policy implications. People should be clear about, we think this happened, but that doesn't mean we should go to war or whatever, What do you think about the idea of a world government created and expanded through democratic and non-imperialist means with no borders and equality? I think it's a little too utopian. I've said this before on the show. It's actually one of the things I said that I thought was most profound, but I guess you guys didn't land as much with you guys. But I always said, I don't believe in utopia, but I believe in close to utopia. I think we can knock on the door. I don't think we'll ever really fully get to utopia, but we can get somewhere close if we all get our shit together. So I think the idea of no borders and equality everywhere and a one world government, I think that's too utopian. I also think that the further away the power centers are, the more skeptical people are of the power centers. And I think that actually makes sense. So if you have a one world government, there's going to be so many people who don't feel involved. I get you're saying it would be a democratic one world government, but the logistics of that seem next to impossible. So, borders and nation states are not inherently terrible, bad, wrong. I actually think they make sense from an organizational perspective. It's like in the US, you have your local government, your state government, and federal government. And you have these different levels to have accountability in different, in different spaces from you. So your local government is perhaps the most accountable to you, and then your state government, and then and then the federal government. So I actually agree with borders for organization's sake, because it's just easier to keep a process in place and keep things moving and functioning the closer you are to the centers of power. So I think it's too utopian. I think it's a little too hard to get the logistics of that down. But, I think the people who would advocate for such a thing, I think you mean well, and I think that you probably think it's possible. You know what I mean? But I think that's a little bit too utopian to pull off. What is your idea of social liberalism? And you think it's the same as social democracy? I've actually never heard the term social liberalism. I've never seen those two put together, social liberalism. Because when I read that, my thought is being liberal on social issues, right? Social liberalism. So just being liberal on social issues as opposed to being liberal on economic issues. That's how I interpret that. I think you're trying to say it's something similar to social democracy. But yeah, listen, this is the thing about political definitions. In some ways they're concrete, but in some ways they're not at all concrete. And there's a lot open to interpretation. Just one example, Noam Chomsky talks about this all the time. The term libertarian used to be used to describe lefties, like socialists. And then eventually it started to be used in the free market Ron Paul libertarian type way, the Ayn Rand type way. So these terms sort of evolve and change, and they're concrete, but at the same time, they're not concrete. Thoughts on discourse on China. I'm not a fan of China at all, but a lot of it seems like obvious U.S. propaganda. Also, the third-party discussion is to distract from the fact that electoral politics shouldn't be everything. That I sort of agree with. I think that electoral politics matter, but they're not everything. I do really agree with the idea of pushing for a general strike. I do really agree with the idea of just really beefing up unions as much as possible, applying pressure through various means, including creating groups that are nominally non-political or non-partisan that get involved in politics. So I agree with that point. The China question is very interesting, and I've had the same thought. So on the one hand, I think there are a group of lefties who sort of downplay and dismiss any of the wrongdoings of the Chinese government, because any government that nominally calls themselves socialist or communist, some lefties, keep it real, just fall for that. And if they brand themselves that way, if they label themselves that way, some people go, that's what they are. And so they're willing to defend them. Also, there is this idea on the left that like anybody who is opposed to the U.S. government and U.S. imperialism, by definition, is correct and on the right side of history or whatever. And so they're willing to overlook flaws in that model simply because they're thinking of politics in a very team-like way, except this team happens to not be Democrat Republican. It happens to be like America and against American imperialism, right? So I think there is a subsect of lefties who maybe overlook many wrongdoings from China. I think that's true. But on the flip side, it is definitely true that, and this is probably the dominant part of the discourse, that there is a lot of harping away at all of the negative things on China, framing them as like the world's number one threat. And it really is propaganda to have this new sort of Cold War. And so I think that that's even a bigger problem than the lefties who pretend like China does no wrong. I do think a lot of the stuff against China is obvious propaganda, and it is overstated, and it is hyperbolic, So I sort of agree with what you were implying that your take on it is, that the discourse is so toxic because you either have the people who say China could do no wrong, or you have the people who say China has never done anything right. And, it's all because people are viewing this stuff through a team perspective. And, if you're willing to be objective about it, of course, China is a big nation. It's a powerful nation. They do a lot of terrible things. But it is also true that the U.S. does terrible things and horrible things. And, both things can be true at once. The U.S. is the world's sole superpower. It's an imperialist nation. It's, as Chomsky says, the world's number one exporter of terrorism. All that's true. And also, the Chinese government is not some sort of angel who is just standing up against American imperialism. So that would be my answer on that. Community Health Systems, Inc., one of America's hospital chains, filed 19,000 plus lawsuits against patients for allegedly unpaid medical bills. Should the squad use this to push Biden to Medicare for all nationalize? I mean, yes, they should, but they won't. But they should, absolutely. I mean, one of the things I was trying to do behind the scenes is I had gotten in contact with Cenk and tried to get in contact with some of the people who are now at Justice Democrats to say, hey, what if the squad blocked every bill and forced Biden to do like 5 of their priorities through executive orders, like eliminating student loan debt, like signing an executive order, at least temporarily expanding Medicare to cover everybody during the pandemic. And basically, like, I hit a brick wall. Nobody's willing to hear me out. Nobody, like, it was pathetic. Like, basically the response was like, they're not going to do that. We know they're not going to do that. We're not even going to bother taking it to them. And it's like, okay, well then a lot of people invested a lot of time, money, hope, and effort in your campaigns, and you're not delivering. You're not even trying. And so it's heartbreaking. It really is. And, the fact of the matter is, they were sent there to do things like what you're describing right now, and they haven't. And they're still somehow like claiming victory and pretending like they're really shifting the discourse. Nonsense. It's nonsense. But yes, that's a disgusting fact, and they should use that to try to force Biden to do something, anything. Biden even backed off of a public option. I don't know if you guys saw this last week. That was one of the things we were going to cover if we had a normal show on Secular Talk. I mean, isn't that crazy? He ran not on Medicare for all. He ran on the watered down public option. And then now that he's in power, he's backed off the public option. And he's like, I don't know, we're just expand Obamacare, which means giving colossal sums of taxpayer money to the health insurance industry who's ripping everybody off. I mean, it's insane. It drives me crazy. How do you deal with family that you call TFG? That means too far gone, everybody. I love my dad, but he's called me brainwashed and not Christian for voting for Biden when he loves Newsmax and thinks the election was rigged. So my answer is, this is not a good answer, but it is the answer that I use. When I really believe somebody is TFG, I just remove myself from the equation and remove myself from their life. Like, I'm lucky in that I don't have anybody who's TFG who I'm like otherwise really close to. You know what I mean? So in other words, everybody who's TFG, I already had them at like an arm's length away. But yeah, that's my approach. My approach is, it's almost like, what's the thing called? Irreconcilable differences when you file for divorce from somebody and it's like, we just can't work out this shit and we're never gonna. I view that in like personal relationships too, where if somebody's in my family and they're TFG, it's like, okay, then let's just not talk about this shit. Just keep it at an arm's length. Maybe I'll see you at some family events or whatever, but it is what it is, right? So I know that's not a sufficient answer for your situation because it's your dad and that's a very different thing. And so I sympathize with you because that's tough. But, what I would do in that situation, because my dad wasn't a fucking political genius. He wasn't some sort of lefty or even somewhat reasonable. I thought he was terrible on politics. I just tried to not talk politics with him, and we kept it limited to the things that we had some agreement on or some shared interest in, So that would be my answer. I know it's not a great answer, but it's the answer that I use. Would you support BDS against China for human rights violations and enslaving the Uyghur, I don't know how you say it. I think it's Uyghur Muslims. I would support sanctioning or BDS, boycotts, divestment, and sanctions against all human rights violating nations. And so the answer is yes. I think China is violating human rights. And so they should be held accountable for that. But I also think Saudi Arabia, there should be BDS against Saudi Arabia. I think there should be BDS against America for the Iraq war and killing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of innocent civilians in Iraq and illegally being in Afghanistan and doing the drone war in the Middle East and Africa and Guantanamo Bay still being open. So my answer, because a lot of the Israel, people who love Israel, like who are insanely in love with Israel, they say this all the time about it. Why are you singling out Israel? You should support BDS of everybody who's a human rights violator. And my response was always, I do. Absolutely. So would I be okay with BDS against pretty much any real powerful government to try to force them to not do human rights abuses? I would. Now, in terms of the last thing you said, the enslaving the Uyghur Muslims, I will say this. I swear to you, a lot of people who I really respect and who have done great work basically say like, that's propaganda or it's massively overstated. I'll say this. I don't know what the fuck is going on with the Uyghur Muslims. My instinct is that there is something going on. Is it as bad as the US government is saying? Like, is it out and out Nazi style genocide? I don't know about that. But even if you put aside that question and look at other things China does, I mean, yes, sanctions against them or BDS against them. I think BDS against all human rights violators is fair game. I do, because that's the way you can influence actions in a way that's peaceful and nonviolent. And so always hit the bottom line. That's the best way. That's why general strike is a good idea. That's why BDS is a good idea. So I know it sounds like I'm dodging, but I swear to you, this is the reality. I've never looked into the specifics and the details of that question. So I shouldn't even really be commenting, but my instinct is to say any human rights violator should be sanctioned. There should be BDS against them. That includes China. They don't get a special exemption because they call themselves communist or whatever, or socialist. North Korea calls themselves a democratic republic. Does that mean that they're a great nation that's free? Fucking of course not. Don't be ridiculous. So that would be my answer on that. I don't know how satisfactory that is, but that is something that, I'd like to find sources on that I truly feel like are completely unbiased for the question of the Uyghur Muslims in China. I'd like to see which outlets argue that this is as bad as they're saying it is. And I know who argues it's really not what they're saying it is. All I know is it's plausible to me that either side of that could be correct. Because we saw this with Syria, right? Where they were trying to say Assad was the butcher and he was responsible for all these deaths. And basically we learned soon thereafter that it was Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra Front was the name of it on the ground. They were the primary rebel group against Assad. The so-called moderate rebels were like jihadist aligned. And so this narrative of like, he's the butcher, he's like Hitler, it was just, honestly, it was propaganda. It wasn't accurate. And God, we wish we had our heads on right, when they did that propaganda against Saddam Hussein and when they did that propaganda against Gaddafi in Libya. As bad as Gaddafi was, that Libya would be in much better shape if he was still in power. That's not to say he's good. That's to say we shouldn't have fucking toppled him and left a void, which now has led to a failed state. So that's my answer on that. I would support BDS against any human rights violating nation. And yeah, that would include China, although I don't know enough about the specifics of that exact question that you're asking about the Uyghur Muslims. Do you agree with Tim Pool that the U.S. is in a cold civil war? And would you attend a debate with Tim Pool? I never really thought about it. I don't want to be a dick here because he's actually said some nice things about me, surprisingly. I don't know why. I'm not a big fan of Tim Pool. I don't think he does a great job. Sorry, Tim, if you happen to watch this. He's just not my cup of tea. I could predict what he's going to say from a mile away. It's very obviously like, I consider myself liberal or whatever, or on the left. I don't think he says on the left. I think he says liberal. I consider myself a liberal, but now let me say how the left is wrong about absolutely everything. Seen that before. It's Dave Rubin style. It's just like, it's so tired and stale and I'm done with it and it's boring and whatever. I don't agree with him that the U.S. is in a cold civil war. I don't agree with him at all. I think we're very partisan. I think we're very tribalistic, but it's not a cold civil war. I think that's way too hyperbolic. And would I attend a debate with him? I don't know. Maybe. I'd have to think about it. But yeah, I guess that's my answer on that question. Some vegans try to co-opt climate movement, wrongly saying animal agriculture is the leading cause, which it's not. Fossil fuels are. I recommend eating less meat won't save the planet. Here's why, by YouTuber What I've Learned. Okay, thank you, Joe, for that comment. That's a rebuttal to one of the previous people. What's good, brother? Longtime watcher, and I love your work, so I'm happy to support you. When I run for Congress, you better interview me. Nathan Banks sent that, and he donated $100. Nathan, that's a very, very kind donation of you. And I see the little winky face, which means you're joking. But seriously, thank you for the donation. That's very kind of you. And everybody keep your eyes out for Nathan Banks, because Nathan Banks is going to run for Congress. And if he's a longtime viewer of this show, I think he probably has some pretty good politics. So this is a question I answered already about free speech absolutism. Hey, Kyle, do you believe we could be allies with Russia in the near future, given the possibility of future elections in Russia that is more pro-EU and the shared dislike and distrust of China shared by both nations? Or do you think partisan politics will interfere? That's a really good question. My answer is no, I don't think we're going to be allies with Russia. I think the Cold War mind virus still permeates through all of the intelligence agencies in the deep state. And I think the deep state really runs foreign policy. So, I understand what you're saying. Can we sort of get on the same page because of my enemy is my friend type thing? I don't think we're going to do that with Russia. And I also don't think that the U.S. really ever acts in a way that's geopolitically rational anymore. I think that, honestly, we're run by idiots. So I don't see that happening. But it's an interesting question, and it was an interesting thought experiment. So let me keep going here. So we're the rebels in Syria we are the rebels in Syria doing the chemical attacks on the people. So it says WE''RE. I think this person is saying, was it the rebels that did the chemical attacks on the people in Syria? You guys had to, follow this stuff. The OPCW whistleblower. I don't know if you guys remember this, but this just came out not that long ago. It turns out that all the claims from the Western governments were total bullshit, and they had no evidence for it. So yes, the claims of the chemical attacks against the civilians in Syria done by the Assad government, that turns out to be total bullshit. And it's not me saying it; it's whistleblowers who were at the UN who were like, "That's not true at all." This was a big story, but it was kind of hidden. It was only like Aaron Mate and a handful of other people who really blew the whistle on it. So, and listen. Going to toot my own horn here a little bit, but yeah, I called that one from the beginning. It was very similar to the Saddam has weapons of mass destruction, and it was not true. And in the case of Assad, I don't know if you guys remember this. Remember when Assad gave up all of his chemical weapons? Remember that? There was a moment where it was like John Kerry and some Russian counterpart doing a press conference, and they basically said, is there anything that Syria could do to make you not like attack or invade? And basically, Kerry said something like, yeah, give up all your chemical weapons, but that's not going to happen. And then the very next day, or within the next week, Assad was like, here, take all my chemical weapons. And they did. They came and they took all the chemical weapons. And so it's funny that like everybody forgets that part. But then they go on to say, well, obviously he was attacking civilians with gas. So in other words, at a time when he already basically won the war, he was going to attack his own civilians with gas, which would bring the West right back into it. It's nonsense. And it turns out we learned it was total nonsense. Hey, Kyle, it's Noah. Did you ever figure out how to just see super chats? Noah, I do not think I did, because I'm reading it in a pop-out window with just the chat. And this isn't the way it looked last time when I got all of the super chats. But having said that, honestly, it doesn't really matter, because I'm not going to have enough time to get to all of them anyway. Because there is some other stuff I want to talk about, which I have, that I've been waiting to talk about. I have some stuff saved from Twitter. And if I don't think I'll be able to answer all of them, because if that was the case, I'd be here until like 9:00 at night. What do you think of Tulsi's comment on Lori Lightfoot? Will she make a comeback as a Democrat or become a Republican? Makes me sad because I wanted Bernie to pick her for VP. I didn't see her comments on Lori Lightfoot. I know she commented on the Lori Lightfoot thing, but I saw the Lori Lightfoot thing, and I think that's stupid. And it is kind of bigoted too. I do. I think this whole idea of like, for those of you who don't know, Lori Lightfoot basically said something along the lines of, I'm only going to grant interviews to journalists who are people of color. So no white journalists. I know that in their convoluted minds, they think they're making some sort of woke, enlightened point, but really that's just sectarianism and bigotry. Sorry. Like, you can't just be like, I'm going to get all white journalists not interested in anything they have to ask. And if you think that's okay, you really shouldn't think that's okay. You really shouldn't think that's okay. That's obviously too far. It obviously crosses a line. I don't know what Tulsi said about it. I know she probably condemned it. I don't know the specifics of her argument. But yeah, this is classic Tulsi now, where she only weighs in when it's like some culture war issue, and she doesn't weigh in when it's non-culture war issues. So, I mean, she's made a point of carving this lane post being a congressperson, where she no longer is really focusing on the bread and butter populist left issues. It is more of this culture war trash. But having said that, yeah, the Lori Lightfoot comment was ridiculous. Like, don't do that. Like, what the fuck are you doing? It's ridiculous. And it does make Democrats look like, oh, do they all think that? Are they all just like anti-white everything? Which is kind of like the question the person asked earlier. Like, are they just like racist against white people? I mean, the answer to that is no. But when Lori Lightfoot does something like that, is that racist? Sort of. Like, yeah. I mean, I don't know how. You can't just say I'm going to exclude all white journalists from doing sit-down interviews with them or whatever the specifics were. So, no question this time. I'm just upset your sub count hasn't hit 1 million yet. Bernard, me too, man. Me too. I'm trying. Only when there's an extenuating circumstance do I really miss a show, like with my studio shitting the bed and my tech stuff shitting the bed. That's why we're doing the live stream now. But I try to be consistent. I try to be on top of it. I'm trying to do everything I can to hit it. And it does feel like the algorithm is just sort of suppressing my stuff. And I've done these comparisons. I talk to Crystal about this all the time. Crystal will release a segment, like the same subject, a very similar headline, and the Hill thing will get like 250,000 views, and the Secular Talk one will get like 60,000 views. Now, mind you, this is from somebody who credits one of the reasons why Rising in the Hill took off. She credits it in part to you guys, to the Secular Talk audience, because she was like, whenever you would come on the show, we'd get incredible numbers. And so she says the same thing I say, which is just like, it's just probably not getting recommended nearly as much as their stuff is, because I'm on a lower prioritization list. I'm deranked in the algorithm where they don't spread my stuff to as many new people, whereas her stuff does get spread to new people. And so way more people watch it. So I think that's what's going on. There are people from YouTube who swear up and down that's not what's happening. I mean, all I can say is I hope that they're right, and I hope that it's solvable, because if it is solvable, I'll fucking solve it. I'll do whatever I have to do in order to get there, And so we got somebody who's going to do some new style thumbnails for us, hopefully, waiting to hear back from that person. And we're trying to hit 1 million. All I could do is do what I know how to do best, which is keep pumping out the stuff that I find substantive and interesting, and let the chips fall where they may, I think circumcising babies is wrong, but I'm worried that banning it would create even more dangerous black market version of it. Maybe phasing a ban in is better. Love you, Kyle. That's an interesting question, Ryan. That's a very interesting question. I tend to sort of agree with what you're saying. I think you're onto something there. But I also would add the caveat that even though I'm against circumcision and I think it's ridiculous, if people want to get it, if they're adults and they choose to get it, go right ahead. Because, you can almost look at it like getting an earring or tattoo or something. It's like, hey, what? I just want to chop off the tip of my dick, bro. Can't get mad at me. It's my body. I get to do what I want. Sure, you're right. All I'm saying is don't do it to babies. Don't do it to babies. People should have a choice at some point. So, but I think you're right about it would create a dangerous black market. I think phasing it out as a ban is probably better. And I think even if we phase it out, there's going to be some super religious communities who are just like, we're going to fucking do it no matter what. And that could have all sorts of problems. So, man, isn't it crazy? Humans have convinced themselves, primarily because of religion and then some fake scientific rationalizations, that obviously cutting off the tips of baby dicks is the right thing to do. Thoughts on inverted totalitarianism, please. Never heard about it or read about it, but it sounds interesting, so perhaps I'll take a look at it. Hey, Kyle, it's Kareem. Do you think that the U.S. citizens in the near future will revolt against the government or some sort of left-leaning political revolution? No. And the reason I say no is because there are too many good distractions. Netflix is phenomenal. Netflix is phenomenal. The internet is phenomenal. We all feel really isolated and disconnected, and that's a problem. But there is also some sort of comfort in that, where all your rage can just be channeled into whatever sort of leisure activities make you feel better in the moment. And so I think there are too many amazing distractions for there ever to be some sort of civil war or actual revolution. And nor would I want a violent revolution, because those usually end worse than they were when you started. I do believe in peaceful means to change the system, and basically by influencing the economic system. I think that's the number one way. I think that's the best way to do it. So general strike, massively increasing unionization rates and having the unions throw around their power a lot more. I think that that's the way that we can best change the system. Having 1 million people march on Washington for X, Y, or Z, getting money out of politics, actual reforms. So I do think that's the best way to change politics. I don't think we'll ever have some sort of official revolt or violent uprising against the government, because people are too comfortable with too many distractions, even though we're all getting screwed on a daily basis. New Pew Research poll shows that upper middle income Dem voters have a higher support for minimum wage, COVID relief, Medicare for all, instead of working lower class Dems. Have we lost the messaging battle? I'd be interested in seeing that poll. That's fascinating. So have we lost the messaging battle? The answer to that is hell yes. I mean, obviously we've lost the messaging battle. I think the left is terrible at messaging. Obviously. I mean, that my show wouldn't be popular if the left was great at messaging. People go to some shithead, loudmouth, average intelligence YouTuber like me to listen to me talk about politics and messaging and stuff, because you're not getting it from any of the Democratic politicians. That's for damn sure. And I don't think you're getting it from the professional left either. So we have lost the messaging battle. We were never in the running to win the messaging battle. I mean, obviously, I believe if people were to take the approach I advocate for more, we would be winning the messaging battle, but we're not. So, but that's an interesting poll. That's fascinating. Hey Kyle, love the show and love the Kyle and Crystal is amazing. Are you still going? Okay, so this is a question that's niche to people who were old school Secular Talk subscribers. I'll talk to Lilith about that, and I'll ask her what she wants to do. So I hope that answers your question, Sam. You know who you are, who asked that question. I wanted to give you the answer without opening up Pandora's box and having more people want to get involved. So, but there's your answer. I'm going to talk to Lilith about it and see what she wants to do. But yeah, that whole program is obviously no longer there anymore, obviously. But I'll talk to Lilith and see if maybe we could do one every now and then. Let's see. Did you know that to this day, we have no mechanism to make exchange rates reflect purchasing power? It's just diced out by Wall Street. Jeez. I mean, that's like, that reminds me of how we don't negotiate with Big Pharma for better drug prices. We just accept whatever they say. Medicare is just like, or is it Medicare? No, it's the U.S. government. It's just like, yeah, we just, whatever Big Pharma wants us to pay, we pay. There's so many ways that the system is just insanely corrupt, and it's like, how does anybody accept this? I think even just the fact that like we're the only developed country that doesn't have paid vacation time by law. I think that alone is like beyond egregious, beyond gratuitous, a slap in the face to every American. And we just sort of like passively accept it. But also nobody really talks about that fact. You know what I mean? Like it's not like on the news they're talking about that fact all the time, you know? Oh, wait, did I miss this one? Thoughts on GME, blatant market manipulations, federal insider trading, oligarchs abusing position. Do you hold? So this person I think is asking about the GameStop thing. I mean, that sort of fizzled out pretty quickly. And I don't know what I would do if I was one of the people who originally bought it. I genuinely don't know what I would do. I also don't know what I would do in regards to cryptocurrencies because I know they took a big nosedive recently. So Bitcoin and all the other Ethereum and all the others. So I don't really focus much on financial markets and investments, but I do feel for all the people who sort of got in on the revolution, the GameStop thing, and then it's just like they were just sort of snuffed out. So it's a pickle, and I don't have the answers, and I'm sorry I don't. Would you vote for a candidate who's pro-Medicare for all, pro-taxing the rich, pro-Green New Deal, but anti-abortion and anti-gay marriage? Nah, I can't. Being against gay marriage is like being against interracial marriage. It's such a deal breaker. It's like, you can't even get that shit right. So no, it's not my politics. I mean, I would vote for a candidate who's pro-Medicare for all, pro-taxing the rich, pro-Green New Deal, and just says, I'm not going to talk about the other issues, abortion or gay marriage. So I'm in favor of Roe versus Wade, and I'm in favor of gay marriage. But if there was a candidate who didn't talk about those things and was for Medicare for all, taxing the rich, Green New Deal, so in other words, just takes a handoff approach to that stuff, I'd vote for that candidate for sure. But if they're openly against it and they advocate for it, nah, I can't. Because that, to not get gay marriage right is like, what? How do you, I mean, we've gotten past that. Like, we've already won that battle. To go back on that is almost like going back on the Civil Rights Act or something. It's just crazy. Michael says, thank you for your great work. Thank you, sir, for the donation. I really appreciate it. Mark Pierce says nothing, but just donates $20. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. I answered that question already on the GameStop. Shag, marry, kill. Donald Trump, Candace Owens, John Boehner. Choose wisely, LOL. Obviously, I would never do those to any one of them. I'm just joking. Yes, so this is a game. Everybody knows this is a game, and this is not to be taken seriously, of course. God damn it. Oh. So for the marry one, it's got to be strict, like, we're abstinent, we're celibate, we don't touch each other. But marry, low-key, John Boehner, because he plays golf and I love golf. So, like, we can sort of get along even though we don't have the same politics. But obviously, I don't want him touching me and I ain't touching him. So marry is Boehner. Shag is obvious. Candace, because she's the only female and I'm straight. And what's the other one? Kill. Yeah, Trump. Yeah, definitely. Apparently you've compensated for the brightness of your neon writing. Have you ever got a sunburn from your studio lighting? No, I have not. I have not gotten a sunburn from my studio lighting, but I do have a lot of Italian in my genetics, and so sometimes I get people make fun of me for being like super tan / orange. And yeah, sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's the fact if I don't put powder on my face, I look worse, I think. I have to put powder on my face in the studio, both in Crystal Kyle and Friends studio and in the Secular Talk studio. When was the last time there was a Kyle and Corin? Also, the mainstream media outlets have been going down the drain for some time, but how long till you think they'll be completely irrelevant? Use this money for seltzer or weed. So they have the whole system propping them up. So I don't think they'll ever be irrelevant, but they're only relevant because they're just propped up. You know what I mean? That's the only reason they're relevant. Kyle and Corin, last one was January. The last one was January. He actually just had, I don't know if he wants me to say this, but he had another baby. And so I'm sure he's going to be a little busy, but I do want to do Kyle and Corin's again. It's always one of my favorite things to do. It's just between him having a baby and me just traveling so fucking much now, DC every week. It's like that's sort of why we haven't been able to do it, because my schedule is just absurd. But I do want to do it, and you know, all I could say is whenever we can, we will try. And in fact, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I'm going on Rogan again in mid-June, and Corin's coming with me. And so we'll probably record some stuff, just me and him behind the scenes stuff when we go. So at least you have that to look forward to. And maybe at some point we'll get to more Kyle and Corns. So I told my neighbor that I can learn more from one day from your videos that he can learn from watching 2 hours on MSNBC. He agreed. Afterwards, he told me about 2 stories while I had 10 plus stories. Now watches your show. Thanks, Sam. I love that. I really appreciate that. Anybody who spreads the word of the show, anybody who, whatever, tweets the links, posts it on Facebook or whatever social media you use, I really appreciate all that. Likes, subscribes. I never used to ask for that. I'm going to have to start asking for that because apparently there's evidence that shows that it actually helps. So I'll probably have to start asking for that. I know it sounds cheap, but you got to do what you got to do. I really appreciate that. And hopefully everybody, does a similar thing because I do think that we're getting suppressed to one extent or another, even if some YouTube folks, unfortunately, don't know it or don't admit it. Ninjas or pirates? I'm afraid to answer this question because low key, it sounds like it might be some weird, questionable lingo that means something else in internet vernacular. You know what I mean? Like this might be stand-ins for other stuff that's not good, So I'm afraid to answer this question, but I will answer it because I'm Kyle. But let me say before I answer it, I'm being very literal here. Ninjas or pirates. I'm being very literal, not whatever that's supposed to be a stand-in for in internet vernacular. I prefer ninjas to pirates. I do. But actual ninjas to actual pirates. Not whatever that's a stand-in for, because I feel like I'm being tricked on that one. Do you think the American Empire will ever die, and if so, when? The answer is it absolutely will die, because every empire has died throughout history. And when it will die, I don't know, but probably sooner rather than later, whatever that means. What is your opinion on James Baldwin, Bayard Rustin, and Norman Finkelstein? I like them all. I like them all very much. But my favorite was actually Malcolm X. He was my favorite. I think he was probably the most dynamic speaker of all time. And funny thing is, I actually totally disagree with young Malcolm X because he was a black nationalist and he was part of the Nation of Islam. But older Malcolm X, I totally agreed with. And I think he was a genius and he was the best speaker of all time. But everybody you listed there, I have a positive view of. Think you can bring Rogan back to his lefty side? Texas is changing him. I mean, listen, all I could do is be myself. What I find with Rogan is that when you're in front of him and when you talk to him and he thinks you're making a reasonable point, he agrees with you. So do I think that he'll agree with a lot of the stuff I have to say? Of course I do. Yeah, but are there some things he would disagree with me on? Maybe. And is it possible that when you have on more conservative guests that over time you sort of creep in that direction? Yeah, that probably happens too. So yeah, I don't know. I'll try my best. I'll be myself. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. Are you thinking of going on any other social media platform? No. Dude, when are you going to wake up to the fact that aliens exist? I'm not of the opinion that aliens don't exist. I just don't really talk about it because I don't know what UFOs are. UFOs stand for unidentified flying objects. I don't know what they are. And that's as far as my speculation goes. So that might be something that you guys, don't like, but that's my honest opinion. I'm not an expert on it and I don't care that much about it. It's possible aliens exist. I just don't know, but there are plenty of unidentified flying objects. I just don't know what they are. Favorite Star Wars? I haven't seen all of them. I've seen most of them, but not all of them. So I'm not like a hardcore Star Wars geek. But I actually, in typical Kyle fashion, I like the one that everybody hated. I like the one that had Darth Maul and Qui-Gon Jinn, where they had like that awesome lightsaber fight towards the end. That low-key was my favorite one, but just because that lightsaber fight, and I saw it when it first came out, so I was probably like a kid when it came out. Have you seen any of actual Justice Warriors videos attempting to debunk your videos? No, I haven't. Maybe I will. They ever pop up on a recommended, but I have not seen that. Just tweeted a pic of a bumper sticker I had created in honor of your show in North Central Illinois. Well, that's very nice of you, David. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate all the love that you guys give. It means a lot. Sometimes I feel like I'm in my own little bubble here, pumping out my content, and you don't know how much it's impacting people. But when I hear stuff like that, it makes me feel really good. The inside baseball version of politics really well. Read theory to understand more of it and to see why capitalism is doomed. I do think capitalism is doomed, for the record. in the same way that the U.S. empire is doomed. Will you have AOC or the squad on Crystal Kyle podcast? Also, what is your relationship with them? Finally, do you check your Discord? I don't check my Discord. I'm a very well-known boomer. Like, even though I'm a millennial, I'm a boomer when it comes to technology. I'm not somebody who's really interested in tech stuff at all or new social media platforms at all. I'm very stuck in my ways. I'm very personality-wise, I'm very conservative. And that surprises people. It also surprises people to know that I'm a big-time introvert, not an extrovert. But so I don't check the Discord. My relationship with the squad is non-existent. I mean, I help co-found Justice Democrats. I used to be on, the Justice Democrats board with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We had weekly meetings. This was before AOC was the AOC. Now we don't have any relationship at all. We don't talk at all. And are we going to have them on the podcast? Probably not. I mean, I'd have Nina Turner. We did have Nina Turner on. I maybe would have on like Cori Bush, but some of them I'm just not interested in anymore because I think they're failing at their job. And so I wouldn't have much positive to say to them. Love to hear that you're going on Rogan again. That was where I discovered you, and it led me to becoming a lefty. Hope you can do the same for others. I mean, I hope so too. That's my goal. That's what I'm trying to do. Just be myself and let the chips fall where they may, and hopefully it convinces some people along the way. Are you going to call out Joe Rogan on his back crap crazy takes on vaccinations? So I saw that video that everybody's talking about where he said, if you're young and healthy, should you get it? No. And, his argument was like, because you're going to be fine if you're young and you get it. He's actually right that you're very likely to be fine if you're young and you get it. The part that he's wrong about is that you still should get it because it's about other people. It's about others. And so you should get it to protect older people who will be, to reach herd immunity, to protect older people so that we can defeat this virus and defeat it faster. So if the topic of vaccinations comes up, I will absolutely tell him exactly what I think and exactly where he was wrong. If it doesn't come up, then we're probably not going to talk about it. It all depends on what comes up in the conversation. I'm not going to make a point to call him out on it, but I'm giving my opinion now. So that's what I think about it. And, I tell him to his face, hey, if it comes up, I don't agree. You should get the vaccine. Whoever it's approved for, you should get it. In the past 2 to 3 years, only one time has one of your videos been chosen for autoplay after watching your episodes. Do you control this? No, of course I don't control this. If I controlled it, I would always have my stuff lead to more autoplay. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things about YouTube that it used to be you could see my stuff on autoplay nonstop. Now you can't. So they tell me I'm not deranked in the algorithm. I'm not borderline content. Okay. I think they're wrong. And I think you're giving a good example because I've heard this 1,000 times from people. Do you think the left needs to frame its message in a nationalistic, pro-freedom way to attract more voters? That's things like Americans are getting the short end of the stick with drug prices. Yeah, I do. I think, like a pro-freedom framing, a more, common man and woman framing, I think is a good thing. Secular Talk After Hours on Discord has a text chat called Ask Lilith. If you have questions for Lilith or Kyle, type them there. Lilith passes on messages to Kyle on request. So Liam said that. Liam is Lilith's husband. Relax a little bit there because fact of the matter is she's going to get about 1,000 things now, and I'm not going to answer 1,000 questions. So no, I actually would not recommend that. I'll ask Lilith the things that I was interested in that people brought up. So if you think that going through Lilith, it's definitely going to get to me, that's not true because I would literally spend the next week answering this stuff when I'm trying to talk about stuff now. So I don't agree with that, Liam, and I wouldn't just volunteer somebody else's time like that. Can you bring on John Mearsheimer to Crystal Kyle and Friends? He is an IR realist. He might give you insight into the dangers to the rise of China. I love you. Thank you, Benito. I love you too. Thank you for watching the show. John Mearsheimer. I'll talk to Crystal about John Mearsheimer. I want to see Bree Joy on Crystal Kyle and Friends. She's someone in left media who I feel is in for the right reasons, unlike many of y'all's peers, in my opinion. I agree. I like Bree very much, and I'd love to have her on the podcast, and I'm sure we will at some point have her on the podcast. Any leftist theory books you recommend? Just started reading Manufacturing Consent. Enlightening so far. Manufacturing Consent is definitely on the list of books that I would say to read. Chomsky's a genius. He's my favorite. Other than that, I would recommend going to the school of Kyle Kalinske. Joe Rogan set looks like a steakhouse, Texas steakhouse. You should bring peanuts on the show. It does look like a Texas steakhouse, but I'm probably not going to bring peanuts. Hey, Kyle, I'm in the Navy in Japan. I just joined and stayed a very liberal person. I joined to get free college and healthcare. Do you think it's targeting lower income in terms of recruiting or just young people? Because I have seen a solid mix. I think it's targeting all of them. I think that's the whole idea of those sorts of programs, is to get younger people and lower income people into the military. It's sort of like, in a way, nudging them in there. So I think that's the whole point. Can you say, well, bang, okay? Just did, Beef Master. Love your name. What advice would you give someone who has a family member who refuses to get vaccinated? They refuse to even discuss it or watch or read what I send. I don't know, man. I've seen a lot of convincing stuff on the vaccines. Actually, Vox did a great video series going into the details on it about the vaccines. You could just read the studies on them. Outside of that, I guess just send them a video where I talk about it, because I talked about the things about it that convinced me. There was a study that showed the number of people who got the vaccine and got COVID was so freaking low, it was nearly non-existent. So any of my videos on it, hopefully that helps. But a lot of people are just really fucking stubborn on that stuff. Hi, Kyle. I'm a Canadian and one of my favorite sources for U.S. news and analysis. If you can talk to a current world leader on KKF, who would it be and why? Keep up the great work. Keep fighting for healthcare. I would talk to AMLO, the Mexican president. He's a very interesting guy. He ran very progressive. He's governed in a somewhat progressive way. I'd like to talk to him the most, definitely. I get that you aren't inclined to research UFOs, but I think you should be, because it has major political implications. The conundrum is that it's a you don't know what you don't know situation. The conundrum is that it's a you don't know what you don't know situation. I agree with that. I don't know what I don't know. If I look into it, I'm just going to hit a dead end. So I view it as sort of like, what's the point? Everybody's sort of stuck in the same place. Are there UFOs? Are there unidentified flying objects? Yes. Do we know what they are? No. That's pretty much where my interest ends. Loved your work for 10 years. Please go back on mainstream news. You're the best communicator for our ideas. Where's Kyle and Corin? Corin just had a baby, and I've been traveling to DC every single week, so that sort of explains the lack of it. I do want to get back to doing them at some point. Should I go back to mainstream news? Yeah, I don't think they'll ever invite me on again, though. That's the problem. Thank you for talking my shit today. You got me into politics in 2016, and now look at me. Still love you and feel your heart is 100% in the right place. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say. I guess is this another YouTuber or something who's saying this? Do you think my son's wife will stay with him as he continues to botch the money he inherited from me and grow old and irrelevant? Do you think my son's wife will stay with him as he continues to botch the money he inherited from me and grow old and irrelevant? Oh, Fred Trump asked that question. That's hilarious. 50-50 on whether or not they're getting divorced. That's what I think. That's hilarious that happened. Thank you for your coverage of Palestine. I'm Palestinian myself, and I learned a lot of new things from your show. Appreciate it. My pleasure. My pleasure. You know, having Abby Martin on and having Rania Khalek on, that was wonderful. It was really great, and they were very enlightening on the topic. SGU podcast covered the UFO story from a critical thought perspective. In my opinion, you have a lot in common with them and would love to see them on Secular Talk. I've never heard of the SGU podcast, I must admit. If Donald Trump runs against Kamala Harris in 2024, who do you think will win? And are you planning on having Chris Hedges on Crystal Kyle and Friends? Yes, we are planning on having Chris Hedges on, although we don't have a date for him yet. Okay, but we do want to have him on. And if Trump runs against Kamala in 2024, I have no idea who's going to win, but that could go either way. Right now, I'm just agnostic. I'm 50-50 on it. As the race goes on, I'll be able to give you a better prediction based on how they're running their campaigns. But right now, it's a coin flip. Have you ever considered having Hamilton Morris on Crystal Kyle and Friends? No. Wasn't he a vice guy? Or was he the drug guy? Or was he the drug vice guy? I think I saw him a little bit on Rogan's podcast, but I never considered having him on. But maybe if I learned more about him, I would. I joined 70 minutes late to the stream. Is Talking Smack announced somewhere in advance? No, it's not. That's how I roll. No, the only thing that's usually predictable is the normal show. These are not predictable at all. They pop up whenever the fuck I want them to. And also, I'm a boomer, and I set it up at like the last minute. Thanks for the good work, and keep boosting positive union news. Time to rebuild the base. Yes, I agree with you completely. And the best on this by far is Crystal. Crystal is so good on the issue of unions. She's taught me a lot about the issue of unions. She taught me a lot about the PRO Act. She's phenomenal on this issue, and she does, I think, a better job than anybody covering union news. She does an even better job than I do. If you could appoint a Supreme Court justice, who would you put in? Cornel West. Love that. Kyle, what are your thoughts on Belarus's dictator's move to land a jet to arrest prominent critic and protest organizer journalist Roman Protasevich? I saw Jeremy Scahill tweeted something about that. I don't know anything about it. All I saw was that Jeremy Scahill tweet, but assuming it's true, of course, that's incredibly authoritarian. And, they brought up the thing like making the Bolivia president's plane come down so they could try to get Snowden. So, yeah, no, I mean, free media is a free media, and if you're against that, you're authoritarian. And so this guy's deeply authoritarian if these reports are true. Hey, Kyle, would you support adding Senate seats in states with larger populations or a different reform / abolishing it completely? Ideally, what I would prefer is abolishing the Senate completely. Somebody says, how much money do you receive annually from Big Seltzer? $0.00, but it should be at least $100,000 a year from Big Seltzer because I am the number one salesperson of Big Seltzer, even though I'm not even trying to be. So that's the reality about that. Do you like Hassan? I do. I like Hassan Piker quite a bit, actually. And it's great to see how, phenomenally successful he's been. I mean, his numbers on Twitch are through the fucking roof, and his numbers on YouTube are through the fucking roof. In all seriousness, his YouTube numbers bury Secular Talks numbers. Like, he's got these clip channels that release clips, and it's just like, all of them explode. So good on him. He's worked really hard to get here, and he does a really good job. I swear the left is so divided now, in my opinion. I think that's true. I think the online left is very divided for sure. Have Hassan on Crystal Kyle and Friends, please. Yes, I like that. Crystal and I both would like to have Hassan on. I'll reach out to him at some point, and we'll definitely get him on because I'd love to have him on. Will you ever go on H3H3, Ethan Klein's podcast, or have him on your podcast? He had Hassan on and did a collab with Andrew Yang. Yeah, I've seen some of H3H3 stuff, Ethan Klein, and who's the other one that he's with? I've seen some of their stuff. I haven't watched it religiously or watched it a lot, but yeah, I probably would go on his podcast, and I'll talk to Crystal. Maybe we'll have him on our podcast as well. Do you think we need anti-woke populist left Tea Party? I think the woke is a serious liability to the left, and Dems will lose in 2022 and 2024. Are my concerns valid? Yeah, I mean, that was the whole point of Justice Democrats. The original Justice Democrats platform had a plank in it on free speech on college campuses and how not just college campuses, but how we believe in free speech. So the whole point of the original Justice Democrats was a populist left Tea Party that focused like a laser on all of the important issues. And, suffice to say, it's not really like that anymore, and they strayed from the original mission. So, but yeah, that's my mindset too. Have you ever considered appearing on Deep Fat Fried? Yeah, TJ Kirk is a friend of mine, for sure. I've never been asked to go on it, but he's a friend of mine. I used to do his old podcast, The Drunken Peasants. I've talked to him on my channel. I think I've been on his channel. So yeah, sure. I like TJ. He's a friend of mine. I don't know if you missed my first message, but have you seen the right to repair bill that is huge for the tech people? Lois Rossman is trying to get it passed. He's a YouTuber as well, if you will look into it. Okay. I did not know any of that, but thank you very much for the donation. I appreciate it. Have you heard of Meet Kevin running for governor of California? He's extremely policy focused, but is being censored on Instagram podcast. I never heard of him, so I can't say whether or not I'd have him on the podcast. But just so everybody knows, because I've seen a lot of stuff about this, like, talk about the New York City mayor race or talk about this governor race. I haven't talked about any governor race, and I haven't really talked about any mayor race. We had Andrew Yang on Crystal Kyle and Friends. But that's just because we were interested in him from before, even from when he was running for president. And also, we were very critical as well. We told him where we agreed with him, and we were very critical where we disagreed with him. But I'm not getting involved in the mayor's races or the governor's races because I haven't researched them. I don't talk about things I haven't researched. So I will probably not be having him on the podcast. Probably won't even be looking into it. The only person who I've covered from the California race is Caitlyn Jenner, and that's largely to make fun of her. Why is Ted Cruz so insufferable? Please do a Ted Cruz rant. I love you. Benito keeps saying he loves me. Benito, I think you really love me, huh? Why is Ted Cruz so insufferable? Please do a Ted Cruz rant. He's insufferable because he's a little weasel, and he's got a nasally, high-pitched voice, and he's a cuck, and he got cucked by even Trump, which is the saddest thing I've ever heard. Have you heard of Whole Washington? It is an initiative to get a single-payer healthcare system on the 2022 November ballot here in Washington State. I haven't heard of that, but that I will endorse. I will endorse single-payer in each state individually. So just so everybody knows, Whole Washington is to get single-payer in Washington State. Everybody support that if you're in Washington State. I already answered the Meet Kevin one. Kyle, what are your thoughts on Gabagool? I love The Sopranos. I have no thoughts on Gabagool. Has Crystal seen the Secular Talk clip where you covered Crystal getting pranked on MSNBC regarding the Malaysia flight Air 730. It's a 7-year-old clip. Yes, her and I have had conversations about it. But yes, just so everybody knows, I was making fun of Crystal because she got pranked by some Howard Stern supporter. And I was like, you're so stupid. You didn't even realize that you were being pranked. Now, obviously, I feel bad for having said those things because Crystal's amazing in every way. So, yeah, we have talked about it. And I would like everybody to know that Crystal Ball is, of course, not stupid at all. In fact, I think she's brilliant. But yes, we have talked about that clip quite a bit, believe it or not. Would you ever go on the Vanguard? Those guys are great, have been blowing up, and they seem to be fans of yours, very similar politics. Yes, I will say this, though. Everybody relax a little bit. I haven't had, since I'm traveling to DC every single week, and my schedule is freakishly busy, and now I'm dealing with shit with my studio not working, right? I cannot say I'm going to go on other people's podcasts at any point in the near future. Okay? Like, I'm just not, I don't have the bandwidth to do that right now. But will I go on the Vanguard podcast? Will I go on, because they're the people who interviewed Chomsky. I saw that. Will I go on H3H3? Yeah, I'll go on those. The only one that I actually have made time for is Rogan, and that's because Rogan's a genuine friend. Like, I'm friends with Joe Rogan. So, I'm not really doing podcasts now, but when I do them, yes, I would go on theirs. I would go on H3H3. And that's my answer to that one. And we already answered the Donald Trump one. Would you consider uploading more clips from KKF to YouTube? Some don't listen to that show as much since Substack isn't as big a platform. So the answer to that is no. You did get some extra clips this week, but that's only because my studio shit the bed and I had tech problems, okay? You're going to get one teaser clip every week. The most you'd ever get is like 2 teaser clips per week, okay? We're not going to do that because the paying subscribers get the whole video of the whole show. That's the whole point of the paying subscribers. They get the whole video of the whole show. People who want to just get the audio for free, you could get the audio for free. You could get it at almost any of the podcast platforms. It's on 1,000 different podcast platforms. So if you want to listen to KKF, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever thing you like the most, go to that and you could listen to KKF. Go every Saturday night and you'll see the new episode of Crystal Kyle and Friends. Okay. But no, we're not going to clip up the whole show and put it up there because it's only for the paying subscribers. So pay $5 a month on Substack and watch that. And we really appreciate the support too, by the way. By the way, just so everybody understands, Crystal and I have made a choice to say we're not taking any ad money at all. At all. At all. There's zero ad dollars coming in. There's zero other sources of revenue coming in for Crystal, Kyle, and Friends other than the $5 you pay. So Crystal and I just want everybody to understand that Crystal and I made a decision. We sat down and we said, we're only going to make 25% of the money that we can make doing this podcast. We're literally taking a pay cut of like 75% of what it could be. But we decided, don't care. We're principled on this. We want to build something that's not dependent on any ad dollars at all. We want to build it only with small dollar donations. And so that was the idea behind it. Let's just have only $5 a month paying subscribers and people will get the video of the show, and let's just see how it does. And so we're sacrificing a hell of a lot of money because advertisers would kill and throw money directly at our faces to get on the podcast. We don't want it. So anyway, that's my long way of saying, if you like the podcast and you want to see the video, pay the $5 a month on Substack and sign up. Because we really appreciate it. It helps so much. And we also want to prove that it's possible to do good with that model, that things are okay and sustainable with that model. And of course, we have now we have 3 other, actual workers for Crystal, Kyle, and Friends for the podcast. So support us however you can. Pay the $5 a month on Substack, get the video. It means the world to us. And again, we want to prove that you can build something that's totally has zero ad money on it. Secular Talk does have some ad money. Everybody knows that. Right? Like I do have ads on my videos on Secular Talk, but that was the whole point. She has ads on the videos on The Hill, right? On Rising. But we wanted to prove that we actually could build something and it could be sustainable not having that ad money. So anyway, no, it's not going to go on YouTube. It's going to stay the way it is. You can listen to the audio for free. It'll always be free, the audio version. But if you want to help us out and you want to see the whole video, pay the $5 a month on Substack and prove that we can have independent media that's sustainable. And we could do it with small dollar donations because I want to prove that in the same way that I want campaigns to be run on just small dollar donations and them to succeed. You know what I mean? So anyway, please support Crystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. Pay the $5 a month and make us look like not idiots for making the decision we made. Because we could easily look dumb by saying, we'll build it with just small dollar donations. And it's like, we failed massively. So anyway, that's my long spiel on that. In the UK, you only have to start paying your loan after earning over, I think, $25,000, and it's written off by the age of 50. I don't think a plumber should pay for a rich kid's liberal arts degree. So, George, this strikes me as you're arguing against free college, but your premise there is wrong. You said, I don't think a plumber should pay for a rich kid's liberal arts degree. Okay, then why not have a progressive tax and the money only on the top 5% of earners, let's say, pays for free college? What about that? What if you only fund it? Bernie's was funded through a Wall Street transaction tax. Those are the high-speed traders who are, doing bullshit all day, pushing numbers around a computer screen. Why not tax those assholes and use that money for free college? So this idea that you're going to take money from a working person and give it to a wealthy kid, that's nonsense. And you can craft the legislation so you're not doing that, so that you're doing the redistribution in the other direction. So you should support it in that direction. Okay? So free college is a great idea. And I hate this. Is such a bullshit argument when people try to say it's like an anti-populist idea. No, it is the most populist idea because education gives people a chance at a future. Look at Cenk's dad, Dogan. He went from an olive farm in Turkey to being a wealthy businessman in the U.S. because he had free college in Turkey. He credits it to the free college. So it is the best populist policy you can come up with. It gives everybody a chance at a better life. Do you truly believe that Nina Turner will bring the fight that we need to get progressive policies passed if elected? I think there's a better chance Nina will do it than anybody else who's there right now. So in a way, yes. There's a better chance that she does it, but even having said that, is she the solution? No, we need more than just one congressperson who's a leader and who's, in for the fight. I paid the $150 for the year on Substack when you interviewed Nina. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, there are different options, guys, on Substack for Crystal, Kyle, and friends. Obviously, if you pay the $150, you get the whole year of the videos. So whatever was easiest for you, $5 a month, $150 a year, whatever it is. It really helps us big time because, again, we've foregone all other sources of revenue. And if we wanted to, we could have 5 other sources of revenue and make way more. I find you incredibly relatable and easily the most intellectually honest commentator out there right now. You going on Rogan anytime soon? Yes. So I'm going on Rogan in mid-June, and I'm really excited for that. Thank you, Ryan Green, for the nice comment. I will say, I said a million times already just in this stream, I'm not that smart. I'm just a regular guy. I really am. Average intelligence, normal guy. But I do think that is true. That I'm always telling you exactly what I think. I'm always honest to a fault. I'm sure I've got myself in trouble because of things I've said that are too honest. So I can promise you that, guys. No matter what, I'm always telling you exactly what I feel and exactly what I think. And sometimes you're not going to agree with it, and that's fine. But that's all I can promise you because that's the whole brand. The whole brand, secular talk. The whole idea is I'm just going to tell you what I think. And sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes it's politically incorrect. Sometimes I'm right. I think a lot of the times I'm right. But yeah, I'm not the most intelligent. I'm not the most intellectual, but I, without a doubt, am honest. Kyle, are you anxious about climate change? My prediction is James Cameron's Avatar series will change the majority of people's perception on climate change. What are your thoughts on Avatar? I've never seen Avatar, and I wish I could be as enthusiastic as you that a movie will change people's minds like that. That would be wonderful. Can you just run for office already? No. We need you to get in there and break these politicians' spines. Joe Biden is such a weak sucker. Te amo. I cannot run for office because I am probably the most problematic person on the left. Those old tweets don't delete themselves, ladies and gentlemen. And I own it too, like a man. I take it right on the chin. Go ahead. Yes, I said that shit. Absolutely. So, no, I'm not going to run for office, but it's not just that. I also just don't want to be in office. I like what I do now. I like being on the media side of the equation. Why won't you engage your parasocial relationships? You and Crystal don't engage with your fans enough. I'm dropping so much money just to get you to reply to my questions. Are you single? Shoe? I think you're asking me if I'm single and then you're asking about shoe on head. For a long time, I have had a policy of just not really talking much about my private life. And I don't do that for me necessarily. I do that to protect the privacy of the other people in my private life. And pretty much everybody who's in my personal life doesn't want to be a part of this circus for understandable reasons. A lot of people don't have the thick skin I have and they can't take certain things, So I'm not going to answer that question. I'm making a choice to not answer that question out of respect for the other people in my life. I'm not going to answer the thing about, am I single or not? And to answer why I don't engage in the parasocial relationships, well, first of all, number one, I am doing it right now. I am seeing your question. I am answering it. And number two, I'm incredibly introverted, guys. You really don't understand. I'm in the top 5% of introverts. Like, I am very, very introverted. I'm as introverted as it gets. You just don't think that because I talk for a living. But if you think about it, I mostly talk to myself for a living. Like, I'm mostly just talking to myself, having a conversation with myself. So that's why. My name is Liam Doris, and I'm running for U.S. Congress in Indiana's 9th Congressional District. I support anti-corruption, Medicare for all, workers' rights, tuition-free public college, Green New Deal, and others. Thanks for all the support. So again, that's Lilith's husband, Liam Doris. Lilith is #1 secular talk all time listener, and she's been my sidekick and my biggest helper all along. She's basically like social media manager and everything. So Liam Doris is running for Congress. That's his platform right there. Everybody take a look at Liam Doris if you happen to be in Indiana's 9th Congressional District, and you can donate if you're outside of that congressional district. He definitely is going to fight for the right thing. So there you have that. Thoughts on starting a direct democracy political party in the U.S. that is manifested through a phone app? People tend to get things right when asked. I like that idea. The phone app thing, I'm not sure. Maybe that seems a little too gimmicky for me, but I generally am a fan of direct democracy as long as it's constitutional. So in other words, you have to have a constitution which lays out your rights. And then beyond that, everything else should be open to the democratic will of the people. Why do you think there's low entrepreneurship in countries with a progressive tax system? Not sure I agree with your premise. I think there's plenty of entrepreneurship in countries with a progressive tax system, so can't really answer that question. Kyle, let's say Congress actually took its job seriously and formed a Trump commission. What crimes would it uncover from his administration if it was investigated in good faith? Let's say Congress actually took is job seriously and formed a Trump commission. What crime? Emoluments clause violation, so corruption. His very first bombing ever as president killed a young American girl. I remember that, covering that story, and nobody else was talking about it. The taking money from Saudi Arabia, Jared Kushner taking money from Israel, and us giving them a multi-billion-dollar weapons deal. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that Trump did that's terrible. Honestly, just the run-of-the-mill corruption is the biggest stuff, but corruption and war crimes, basically. June 1st, YouTube Terms of Service update says YouTube has sole authority to permanently delete any channel considered not commercially viable. Please say something. Whoa. June 1st, YouTube Terms of Service update. YouTube claims the right to permanently delete any channel considered not commercially viable. I don't know if that's true, but if that is true, that is terrible. Do you think Steven Crowder looks cool, manly, and totally straight with his empty gun holster that he always wears? That guy is the biggest goofball, and my God, does that man have some secrets? You could see it from a mile away that he has secrets. With the failure of Justice Democrats on the federal level, is it better to refocus progressive policy / start a third party on local state level? So I think the best path forward, the best thing to do is, I like the idea of a general strike, and I like the idea of rebuilding unions and giving them more political clout and power. So getting workers more directly involved. And I like direct issue advocacy, whether it's Medicare for all or legalizing marijuana, whether you do it at the state level or the federal level, direct issue advocacy. And I like protests, get more bodies in the streets, get as many people in the streets as possible for specific policy demands. That's what I think is the best way forward. We need to be organized. We need to build class solidarity, and we need to get out there in the streets, and we need to support specific issues-focused campaigns. That's what I think that's the way that we'll get the most positive change in the shortest amount of time. So that's my answer on that. Could we somehow introduce MMT to Joe Rogan to spread knowledge next time you're on his show? It is so important. You know, again, we talk about whatever comes up. We don't pre-plan anything, whatever comes up. If we happen to talk about economics, of course, I could bring up MMT stuff. Please ask Chris Hedges about Inverted Totalitarianism. The book is on Audible. Democracy, Inc. by Sheldon Wolin, one of Cornel West's influences. Okay. Thank you, Ricky Perez. Hey, is Secular Talk about to become a full-time streamer? And if so, when's the hot tub stream, man? Whoa. Hot tub stream. That sounds like it's not my lane. No, not a full-time streamer, doing the live stream because my traditional show I wasn't able to do because having massive tech problems in the studio, which hopefully will be fixed by the next show, but might not be. We'll have to see. Can we have a moment of silence for the loss of Kyle's legs? Moment of silence granted. My dog loves listening to Kyle and Corin when it's nap time. Also, I love Kyle and Corin. Please keep making them. I know it's a fan favorite. Everybody loves Kyle and Corin, man. Everybody loves it. Again, just if you missed it, Corin had a baby. I've been traveling to DC every week. It's been hard to do them. If we ever find the time, obviously we'll do them whenever we can. Do you have a favorite Michael Brooks moment? Michael Brooks was his impressions were phenomenal. They were out of this world. Obviously, that moment where he talked about Israel-Palestine went viral because Halsey tweeted it. He's just a great guy all around. My favorite Michael Brooks moments had to be my conversations with him. I had a number of conversations with him, and they were always very thoughtful. Even when we disagreed, it was respectful, and it was really thoughtful. So, there's definitely a void in the media sphere because that guy's gone. He was a good friend, and me and him did Rising together in March just before COVID. I remember that very well. And he's funny. Behind the scenes, he was cracking everybody up, telling jokes, doing offensive accents. I mean, he was a really down to earth and cool guy. So many moments are my favorite, but definitely just my conversations with him were my favorite. Somebody said Nina Turner 2021. Hey Kyle, what's your opinion about the U.S. right now in regards to the economy? You think it will get better or worse? Thank you and stay safe, everyone. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. So the economy it's actually tough to say right now because everybody was talking about that last jobs report, which wasn't great. But I think I think we would have lost 1 million jobs instead of gaining like 220,000 jobs. So that's what I think. I think that like if they didn't do the stimulus, we would have lost 1 million, but instead we gained 220,000 and everybody was like, oh my God, we gained 220,000. So isn't this terrible? It's like, no, compared to if we lose 1 million, it's actually good. So, I don't know what's going to happen, but we didn't do a New Deal style, thing that we should have done. Like we should have done a New Deal style approach to fixing the economy, really do some, build from the ground up, jobs program, universal health care, everything. And we didn't do that. We did like this weird middle ground. It's a one shot of adrenaline. Nothing's recurring. So I don't know. I could see it going either way. Maybe the stimulus will kind of keep everything going a little longer, or maybe it already ran out. And since COVID sort of wrecked the economy, we're on borrowed time. But I'll tell you what, in the long term, if we don't do real changes, we are fucked. What's your honest thoughts on PBS and NPR? Used to be pretty good, now not that great. And I think it's because their funding sources are now also from private businesses and billionaires and shit. So that explains that. What's up, Kyle? Big fan for a while. You're one of the people who got me into politics. It's cool and funny to me that you're cool with Shoe on Head because I always thought that you guys had similarities both on the left, but also funny people. Yeah, no, she's really cool. She was on Crystal Kyle and Friends, and Crystal and I had a great time talking to her. And, I recommend everybody go check out her channel, Shoe on Head. Can you stop saying Dickie McGeezax, please? Thanks. From my cold, dead hands, will you pry that phrase? And from my cold, dead hands, will you pry all of my terrible phrases? Do you see any progressive challenging Kamala and Biden in the 2024 Dem primary? If so, who do you think it will be? I don't see anybody challenging them. And even if they did, they would lose massively because primaries for incumbents, they never succeed. In the modern era, that's never going to happen. Like if somebody tried to primary Obama in 2012, and Bernie floated that idea, but like if you were to try to primary Obama would have crushed whoever. So I would say don't even bother trying because you're going to absolutely fail miserably. Leon says, sup right back at you, Leon. You're the man. Hope everything's going well with you, brother. What do you think about Pacman's position on Israel-Palestine? Yeah, no, I mean, it's very clear. Everybody knows David Pacman and I disagree massively on the issue of Israel-Palestine. Yeah, that's no secret. Okay, what are you saying? Let me know if you want to talk in that kind of setting. We can talk. Official People's Party US. So I guess this is Nick Brana who wants to bait me into some sort of debate. Dude, I wish you well. I hope you build your party. The last thing you should want is a prominent lefty YouTuber to be put in a position where I come out strongly against you. See, that's the thing you don't understand. I hope you succeed. I just don't think you will. There's a big difference. I want you to do well. I don't think you're going to do well. I'm doing an objective description of what I think will happen. That's not saying I want you to not do well. I hope you do well. I just don't think you're going to do well. So I don't know why you would even want to lean in to have a prominent left YouTuber come out more against you. Because if we have a debate and a discussion and you find out all the ways in which I disagree with you, I promise you it's not going to go well for you. So what you should do is accept my tepid support of like, I hope you do well, while thinking you're not going to do well. And if you think I'm wrong in that assumption, how many People's Party folks have been elected since you founded the party? I'm not taking a shot at you. I'm just saying, relax with the whole, like, let me step to you a little bit and let's talk about it. No, I want you to do well. You have good policy ideas, so I agree with you. I wish you well. I just don't think you're going to do well because you haven't fucking done well so far, and I don't see a plan in effect that will make you do well. So, and there's no pithy response of, oh, he's defending the Justice Democrats. You can make here because fuck the Justice Democrats. They failed. They did wrong. They did bad. But that doesn't mean that you're the solution when you haven't had a solution. So, sorry, that's the truth. I wish you well, but I don't think you're going to do well. That's my take on it. And you don't want me to, expound on that more because it won't go well for you. Are you a fan of Depeche Mode? No, not really. To Liam Doris, I want to run for Congress in Ohio. Would you be willing to help me navigate starting a campaign? I just followed you on Twitter. My handle is KEA Berts, Keyberts. I haven't heard you mention nuclear power in some time now, but I hope you've updated your views because last I heard you were completely opposed to it with childish reasoning, which is not like you. No, I mean, I look at what happened with Chernobyl. I look at what happened with 3 Mile Island or whatever it's called, and I see that when it goes wrong, it goes very wrong. Now, of course, there's plenty of nuclear reactors that didn't fail, but there's also Fukushima and Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island. So my view on it was we should do the other versions of it more and first, whether it's solar, whether it's wind, whether it's thorium is technically nuclear, but it's considered more meltdown proof. So I would be willing to go down that path. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's okay. Nuclear is okay, but let's not pretend like there are no downsides because there very clearly are fucking downsides. And I'm not going to believe you over my eyes. Trickle-down economics never worked. I honestly don't get why you are in favor of it. Somebody's joking. Get Slavoj Žižek on your podcast. Seriously, watch Avatar movie. Yeah, I might get that guy on the podcast. I saw his debate with Jordan Peterson. I've seen some of his stuff. Interesting character. And obviously, I don't believe in trickle-down economics. Hey, I want to thank you for helping me bring my dad from a Trump and Q crazy person to a Medicare for all left-leaning person. Hey, that makes my day. Hearing that makes me one happy camper. That's what it's all about, man. That's what it's all about. I try to do the best job I can, and hopefully it goes well. Chips fall where they may, and this is an instance of they fell in the right direction, and I'm very happy about that, and I hope I've deconverted. Again, my most proud thing is that I deconvert people. That makes me very happy. Do you support ranked choice voting? Would you promote it in smaller settings like high schools, companies, and local elections? I do support ranked choice voting, yes. Would I promote it in smaller settings? I haven't really done smaller setting speeches like at high schools or companies or local elections, but if you're asking me, would it be cool for high school elections, company elections, and local elections? Sure. I mean, I agree with it in principle. I like the idea of ranked choice voting, so I don't see why it would be bad there. Actually, a debate between Nick and Kyle would be awesome. No, because I don't see, listen, this is what you got. Some of you have surmised this about me, and some of you haven't, but I don't know if you noticed, I don't really take shots at other people in the left space who I think mean well. And I don't think other content creators do that at all. In fact, I think people get baited into these things very quickly. And instead of building left unity and solidarity on issues that matter, instead of that, they'd rather have these fucking reality show goofy feuds that get a lot of views, but also are totally detrimental to left unity and solidarity and achieving our goals. So there's a reason why I rarely, if ever, go after anybody, who goes after me. Most of the time somebody goes after me, I let it sit. Okay, fine. Do you think what you think? It's fine. It is what it is, right? Very rarely I've responded like when I thought it was bad faith, when I was like, this is fucking weird and gross. But most of the time I let it slide. Why? Because I actually care about building left unity and solidarity and winning on our issues. So I'm not going to get bogged down in some reality show bullshit to get 100,000 views or 500,000 views if in the meantime, we're also ripping the left to shreds. So Nick Brana, as a person, sure, he's a great guy. Nick Brana's ideas in terms of policy, him and I 99% agree. I'm sure of it. I just don't think his path is going to work. That's it. That's all I'm saying. That's the end of my claim. There's nothing there that he's going to push me off of. It's not going to happen. I've already evaluated all the evidence. When we co-founded Justice Democrats, I actually seriously looked at the route of doing a third party. I think it's doomed to failure, which is why we didn't try the third party, which is why we tried to take over the Democratic Party. Granted, that also didn't work, but I gave it my best shot in the path I thought was most viable, right? He has even less success than we had. So he doesn't have any of these People's Party people elected. You know, and there was also a scandal involving them recently that I made an active decision not to cover. And the reason I decided not to cover it is because, again, I think the people generally mean well, and I don't want to rip the left to shreds. So enough with this internet blood sport bullshit. My reaction to it, honestly, to everybody is grow the fuck up. Grow up. Do you want solidarity? Do you want to win on these issues? Or do you want to sit here like reality star idiots and giggle all day and talk about how this person owned this person and this person owned that person? And no, that's not what it's about. It's actually about getting these ideas implemented, spreading these ideas, making the tent bigger, not smaller. Why would I debate Nick Brana when we 99% agree on the issues? And why would I make it so that half the fucking People's Party people hate me and then half of my fucking gigantic audience hates him? I don't want that to happen. So be careful what you fucking wish for, Nick. Like, what do you want to do? You want to be an internet celebrity? Or do you want to actually affect change and move us in the right direction? And the answer should be affect change and move us in the right direction. And that would mean not engaging in a fucking debate with one of the top lefty YouTubers when your whole idea is to build a top lefty party. That would be ridiculous. If Justice Democrats was the solution and they failed, why is a third party not viable? Well, you're suggesting is just to do justice. I didn't say do Justice Democrats again. See, now I'm pissed off because people are putting fucking words in my mouth. But we've seen that strategy fail over and over. Okay, so point number one. The third party fucking strategy has failed over and over too, and they failed way more profoundly than the Justice Democrats have failed. How many Greens are in Congress? How many Greens are in the Senate? How many Greens are even in fucking local and state places? They're not there. How many People's Party people are in the Senate? How many People's Party people are in Congress? How many? How many? So somehow that's not a failure, but it's a failure when we get 12 there and they don't do as good of a job as they should do. Take off the fucking blinders, son. Take off the blinder. People are holding on to this thing in a religious, cultish type way. This idea of a third party. I'll believe it's going to happen when RC Cola overtakes Coca-Cola and Pepsi. It's not going to fucking happen. It's not going to happen. And again, if you want to try it, go right ahead. I wish you well. I do. I just don't think it's going to work. I'm not going to bullshit you guys and say, yeah, we're really close in the next election cycle to having a People's Party president. Or even one People's Party senator. You're not even going to get one fucking senator. Not even one. Not even one. So the fucking difference between me and people like this is that I'm willing to admit Justice Democrats failed. I'm willing to admit that. They're not willing to admit that their third party attempt failed when it's been tried 1,000 fucking times and it's lost 1,000 fucking times. And the words that they put in my mouth were, oh, what you're suggesting is do Justice Democrats over again. When the fuck did I say that? What I said was, I like the idea of a general strike. I like the idea of protests around specific issues. I like the idea of building unions out. I like the idea of single policy advocacy. That's what I like. The only other point I made is that if I were to run for something, I would run as a Democrat because I'd be more likely to win as a Democrat. That's it. That's it. By the way, if a Republican came along who nominally agreed with me on the policies, I'd vote for the fucking Republican because I don't care about fucking labels. I don't care about labels, whereas these people are more obsessed with the label than actually fucking winning. So somehow if somebody runs as a Democrat and they're right on all the policy issues, now all of a sudden they're out the window, don't support them. Why? Because other Democrats are bad. The fuck is that? I don't give a fuck if some other Democrat is bad. If this one is right on the issues, doesn't fucking matter. I don't care about a fucking label. What am I, 5? No, it's about the actual issues. So grow up and stop fucking strawmanning people because now I'm getting fucking pissed off. Are you aware Senator Patrick Leahy is in at least 5 Batman films? What? Heath Ledger's Joker puts a knife to his face saying, you remind me of my father. So Justice Democrats ended up a disappointment. Do you ever work with Cenk anymore, or was there a falling out with the Turks? Love the show, buddy. Jenk and I are friends, but we very rarely talk, if ever. There was no falling out. There's no falling out. And I think he sort of views that the same way I do, that, we sent them there to be a left Tea Party. They're not being a left Tea Party. That's the end of it. That's a failure. They failed. So I haven't talked to him about the specifics beyond that, but I think he's kind of on the same page as me with that. He's had criticisms of them as well recently when he realized they're not going to fight on fucking anything. Because the original response from AOC during Forced to Vote on Medicare for All was, I want to keep our powder dry so we could use it on forcing a vote on the $15 minimum wage. Well, then the $15 minimum wage fight came along and they didn't do anything. They could have blocked the bill and said, put it in there or else, but they didn't do it. They didn't fucking do it. So at that moment, a lot of people realized oh, okay, they're not going to fight on fucking anything. And that's where we are now. So I think Jenk understands that. I understand that. And it is what it is. It's sad, but facts are facts. And you have to discuss reality as it is, not as you want it to be. At university, I learned the Chomsky hierarchy of programming languages and theoretical computer science. Later, I discovered your channel and heard the name Chomsky again. Doesn't stop to amaze me. Yeah, Chomsky was first known for linguistics before he was known for politics. So he was very famous in a different field before he even touched on politics, which is fascinating. But, he had some great contributions to the field of linguistics and obviously great contributions to politics. Get Booch Riley, director of the film Sorry to Bother You, on Crystal Kyle and Friends, a very knowledgeable communist and will be fun to have on. No person could win against Biden. What about Kamala, though? She sucks at campaigning. I got to have hope that someone can beat her. Oh, you're saying, okay, I see what you're saying. You're saying that in 2020, Biden dies or something, 2024 comes around, Kamala runs and there's a primary, or 2028, Kamala runs and there's a primary. Kamala became a much more viable candidate now that she was VP. So she's going to hop up that list and be a more serious contender. She has to not totally shit the bed like last time, but she's a more serious contender. Hopefully somebody can beat her. I don't know if somebody can beat her, but we damn sure have to fucking try. That's for sure. Hi, Kyle. Are you low-key a god? You never skip a beat on these issues, but I'm curious to know what your views are on the Hong Kong protests from both 2014 and 2019, 2020. I'm from Hong Kong, and China do be pissing me off. So that's a really great question. So what I found most interesting in that whole discussion is how people from Hong Kong viewed themselves. Because there were times when China was more hands-off that people in Hong Kong said, I view myself as Chinese. More of them said, I view myself as Chinese, not primarily from Hong Kong. And then as China kept increasingly cracking down on Hong Kong, people's public opinion flipped. And it was, no, I'm Hong Kong. I'm from Hong Kong first and China second. And so really my reaction to this is it's whatever the people of Hong Kong want, whatever they prefer. If they want to remain independent, they should remain independent. Now, listen, the origins of Hong Kong are not pretty. Yes, it was a Western imperial project. We all know that. But at this late date, if Hong Kong chooses to be independent and have its own sort of pseudo-Western, pseudo-Chinese mixture ideology and identity, who am I to say you can't have that? So I would just leave it up to the people of Hong Kong. I'd leave it up for them to vote on it democratically. Do you want to be independent? Do you want to be Hong Kong? Or do you want to be part of China? We've had this weird sort of middle ground for a long time. And China looks like it's finally cracking down and saying, no, this is ours. They do the same thing with Taiwan too. So it's ugly. These are not pretty disputes. And, I'm always a fan of whatever the people in the place want if all other attempts fail to unify the people. So that's my general take on that. I hope that's helpful. Hey, Kyle, Frenchman in Tennessee here and love your show. Have you heard of Francois Boulot? He is now pretty much the equivalent of you in France, if there is one. Please try to connect with him. I've never heard of that guy, but that's amazing to hear that somebody's a version of me in France. Kyle, would you ever consider posting your daily show to other platforms? What do you see in YouTube's future long-term? They have us by the balls in the same way that Twitter has us by the balls. They're too big and too powerful. And there's nothing I could do that can change that. If I go somewhere else, I'll only retain 20% of my audience maximum. So no, I'm not switching to other platforms out of absolute necessity. If I have to, will I? Sure. But I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I'm not going to go to other platforms now. I'm sort of married to them, whether or not I like it. And there's no possibility of a divorce. I will say, though, Crystal Kyle and Friends has gone to other platforms. We do all the major podcast platforms. So there's always that, and you should check it out on the other platforms or check it out on Substack. Do you think Nina Turner will be a fighter if she gets in, or will she bend the knee like AOC? See, this is where my language differs from you and your explanation here. I think AOC genuinely thinks she means well and she's doing the right thing, even though she very clearly isn't, and Washington, D.C. has rotted her brain beyond recognition. I think Nina Turner will definitely fight more than all the other ones who are there right now, but will it be enough fight? We'll have to wait and see. I'll have to judge it when I see the evidence. It could go either way. Already answered that one. Please interview Immortal Technique on Crystal Kyle and Friends. He's very knowledgeable on U.S. foreign policy. Thank you, Cap. Would straight heterosexual be too woke and insular a term in the 60s or 70s when people don't know a lot of gay people? I would just say the word straight. If somebody's straight, I'd be like, I'm straight. That's it. I don't know why that's so hard for people to digest. I don't know why people have an issue with, dissecting language and terminology. Like, that's one of the main things about strategy is how should we frame this? How should we discuss this? How should we portray it? And for some reason, when I said the thing about, I think the vernacular is too insular and too sectarian and too woke, people came after me. And it's like, okay, fine, go ahead. Keep using that vernacular and let me know how it goes. I will not be using it. And believe me, it's going to go better for me than it is for you. So I don't know why people had an issue with that. I'm always in favor of explaining things in the simplest, most direct way possible. Anytime you want to sniff your own farts in your little fucking subgroup and be a little clique, it feels good, sure, but you're a subculture. And my whole point and the whole point of politics should be you want to be the dominant culture, not the subculture. I want the left culture to take over. I want it to be the dominant culture. And if that means sacrificing on goofy terms that were made like 3.5 days ago, fuck it, I'm all in. Thanks for the lovely answer. My pleasure. Thanks for all you do. Really enjoying Crystal Kyle and Friends. Will you share your birth time for us astrologers out there? I was born January 31st, 1988, and I was born during the halftime of the Super Bowl. I don't know when that was, though, because I don't know what time the Super Bowl was on. But I know I'm Aquarius, but I don't know how real that stuff is. I'm skeptical on how accurate that stuff is. Why are there no Facebook or Twitter pages to promote Crystal Kyle and Friends? I feel like it's hard to promote the show without it. Maybe. Perhaps there would be more people watching if we had, invested in that. But we've sort of put all of our eggs in the basket of her Twitter feed, my Twitter feed, her public profile, my public profile, and our YouTube shows. And I mean, yeah, it would probably be good to set up something like that to spread it further. But spread the word however you can, guys. I'd really appreciate that. Do you think neoliberalism is completely dead? Do you think Biden only won because of COVID and George Floyd? If so, do you think that the Democrats will lose every single presidential election from here on out? No, the Democrats are not going to lose every presidential election from here on out. The Republicans are not going to lose every presidential election from here on out. There's going to be that back and forth effect because people get disgusted with one party and go to the other, then they get disgusted with that party and go to the other. I mean, that's just what happens. That's the dynamic of how it's been for decades now. Is neoliberalism dead? It's dead in terms of its popularity and the perception of it among the American people. It's not dead as the dominant ideology and philosophy. I mean, I think corporatism is the connecting tissue for the United States, and it has been for decades, and it will continue to be in the future until there's some serious, efforts to change that. And so, no, I think we're still in many ways in the era of Reaganism, even though Biden has ever so slightly, moved from the consensus. It's not much, you know what I mean? So neoliberalism is dead ideologically and popularity-wise. It is not at all dead in terms of it is still the dominant philosophy of the day. It's still the ruling philosophy of the day. When is the Crystal Ball younger guy co-host Haram scandal coming out? Just kidding. You should check out Friendly Geordies for messed up Australian politics. There you go. Friendly Geordies, everybody. Do you think AOC switching out her staff early on for a DNC approved one guided her through the decision she's been making? Yeah, I think that has something to do with it for sure. Definitely. Because I know that the original people who were talking to her would not have been this bad. I may have had disagreements with some of those people. They wouldn't have been this bad. No way. Hey, Kyle, I was wondering, do you think we'll ever see having an episode of Crystal Conference with Hassan Piker? Yes, absolutely. I answered a question on that earlier, and I'd love to have Hassan on. Your opinion on a viable third party as opposed to hostile takeover, one of the current parties. I discussed that earlier about 1,000 times in the stream, so you could check it out. Just when this is done, rewind it a little bit, and you'll see. I talk about that in great detail. Definitely don't think third party is going to work. The hostile takeover hasn't worked because they're not doing a hostile takeover. So we're a little bit in no man's land in limbo right now in terms of that strategy, which is why general strike, building unions, direct specific issue advocacy is probably our best path forward as of right now. Do you think it will be awkward to have Vosh on with Crystal? No, I don't. Vosh has come after me. Vosh has gone after Crystal. The only reason he's coming on is because I think he's an honest actor. If I didn't think he was an honest actor, he wouldn't be coming on. If Crystal didn't think he was an honest actor, he wouldn't be coming on. So we trust him enough to think that his criticisms, even though they were vituperative and over the top and a little vicious, we think he meant what he was saying. So let's talk about it. Let's have the discussion. Let's see who's right. Let's dive into all the issues. And no, I think it'll be perfectly lovely. I think it'll be normal conversation at first, and we'll debate, sure, but it'll be just exploring our differences. And I think it's going to be important for people to see, but it won't be negative. It won't be, us ripping each other to shreds and making enemies of our fan base and his fan base, because there's no positive comes out of that. And I trust that he's able to have a conversation because I've seen him do it before. Did you hear about the YouTuber Meet Kevin running for governor of California? Instagram already deleted his account, and Wikipedia is giving him a hard time because he called Newsom a weenie baby. Harassment. Oh my God, that is not harassment. I didn't hear about that, but there's definitely like an anti, internet celebrity type culture out there in the mainstream of culture, in elitist culture. And it really is insufferable because as bad as YouTube celebrities are, that elitist traditional media culture is way worse. In short, you're not against the People's Party. You just think we can repeat history, i.e. the Republican Party replacing the Whig Party. I can and do respect that while disagreeing. I'm curious if you read the works of Nassim Nicholas Taleb. No, I have not. Any plans coming out to the Bay Area, California? No, I have none as of now. As of right now, I'm sort of handcuffed to New York and DC and one brief stint in Austin. Somebody thanks me and Vosh for saving him from the right-wing pipeline. And again, that's another reason why I wanted to have Vosh on the podcast, is because I know he's responsible for deconversions too. So that alone makes me respect him. That's the thing I'm most proud of. I'm sure it's one of the things he's very proud of. And so since he's doing that good work, he deserves, time and a conversation and a discussion and to, iron out wherever we disagree. Dude, if you get paranoid with weed, why don't you try Delta 8 also run for Congress? I'm not running for Congress. And I didn't tell you guys this, but I have tried weed more recently. And what I did is I listened to Joe Rogan. I only had like 2 or 3 hits. And weed is totally different when you only have 2 or 3 hits. When I was an idiot in high school, I would take like half a blunt to the face and I'd be fucking cooked out of my mind. And I'd be seeing things that aren't there and I'd be paranoid. Turns out when you just take 2 or 3 hits, you get high and it's just a pleasant high. So I'm actually not as bad with weed as I thought I was. Are we screwed to stop irreversible climate change? I worry for our response to the climate migrants that will appear. It might get xenophobic. It'll definitely get xenophobic. And I don't know if it's irreversible. I mean, hopefully it's not. Hopefully we get our rear in gear. Hopefully somebody comes up with some technology that can help reverse the trend a little bit. But I don't have the answers on that. I'm sorry. I wish I did, but I don't. But I think you're right about the xenophobia thing. Already answered the weed one. Universal healthcare could be possible if you nudge individuals to be healthy. And by that, I mean tax twice or triple the healthy individuals. More AI in health to reduce adverse selection. See, that's where my more libertarian side comes out. And I say, you got to let people live their lives the way they want to. I don't want to have double tax or triple tax if you're, eating cheeseburgers or you're doing drugs. That's called freedom. And the whole point of insurance is that we all pay into it and whoever needs it gets the help. So some people might need it more than others. That's fine. That's just the way insurance works. So I disagree on punishing people for something that, you should be able to live your life however you want. And there shouldn't be consequences in terms of a financial penalty or you can't get the health insurance you want or it's more expensive. I don't like the way that sounds. Would you consider doing a report card grade thing like you did with Obama, but this time for Bush and Trump? Bush, no, because it was too long ago and I was too young for most of it. So I don't remember everything he did. Trump, very possibly. But that would be a very big project and I'd probably need to take some time off and it would take like 3 days to make the video like it did for the Obama one. Hey, Kyle, huge fan, and you were the reason I'm studying political science, but I think you should branch out with Twitch or other ventures. Helps your channel grow in spite of YouTube's BS. Yeah, I mean, that is being considered. That has been considered. It really depends. It depends more on YouTube than anything else. It depends on how acceptable their moves are from here on out. And so I now have a line to YouTube, which I didn't have before. I have somebody who I can talk directly to. So I get more information now. It gives me more accurate picture. And I can judge what I think is going on versus what I'm told is going on and determine how much of a path forward there is on YouTube. But yeah, it's under consideration. The Twitch thing is under consideration. I'll leave it at that. Nominating Dr. Michael Greger, author of How Not to Die for Crystal Kyle and Friends. Chronic conditions like number one American killer, CVD, and diabetes are rare in populations adhering to whole food, plant-based diets. Crystal had somebody who was diet focused who was going to come on the show, but he canceled at the last minute. So we might touch the topic again, but if we do touch the topic, you better thank Crystal, because that's not my wheelhouse. She cares about the diet stuff and the health stuff. I don't at all, but I'm willing to do the podcast if she wants to do it with somebody who's an expert on it. I support the death penalty if, one, the crime is very severe, serial killer or torture, and two, the amount of evidence is insane, totally excluding an innocent person, because society having to pay for that piece of shit existence is shit. What do you think? In theory, I agree with you. In reality, there's no way you can make it foolproof. If you have the death penalty, you're going to kill some percentage of innocent people. So I think I have to be against it as a matter of principle. But in the world of theory, I agree with you. I think some things deserve death. But, we don't live in the world of theory. We live in the real world. And if you have the death penalty, innocent people die no matter how foolproof you try to make it. Are you familiar with Bo of the Fifth Column by any chance? If so, would you ever consider having a discussion with him on Crystal Kyle and Friends or his live stream? I don't know who that is, so unfortunately I can't answer that. I apologize. So when you're doing DMT psychedelics on the Joe Rogan Experience and then changing the name of your channel from Secular Talk to Spiritual Talk, so when am I doing that? Mid-June is when I'm doing that. Have you heard about the crypto that scam people out of millions, but people can't do anything because it's not regulated? Yeah, I heard there were some crypto scams. I don't know the specifics of them, but I also saw the other day that crypto took a big hit, probably because of the Elon Musk thing when he sort of broke up with Bitcoin or whatever. So, but I'm not too much into the crypto stuff or the financial market stuff, but I have heard things, through the grapevine. Don't be so deprecating on KKNF. You're all right. Thank you, Melinda. I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but yeah, I'm an open book. You always know what I'm thinking. Gotta go, but I love these. I know it probably takes a lot out of you, but please do these live streams like once a month. I want to. In fact, I think many of you are very happy that my studio and the tech stuff stopped working for a little bit, because it seems like you're enjoying the live stream more than the traditional show. But I don't know. I have to think about it, do a lot of thinking about it, and then maybe I'll try to find a way to work it in where I can actually do it and I'm not handcuffed by the time, because the problem is I committed to it before, but I just don't have the time. And so I have to make the time, which would mean it would have to replace one of the shows. But if I could chop up some of this stuff as its own segments and put them up somehow, then maybe I can, kind of make this a part of it. I don't know. I have to think about it, but I am thinking about it. I can assure you that I'm thinking about it more seriously than I ever did before, because I do enjoy these as well. Apparently Julio Jones is out of Atlanta. Where do you think he ends up? Already said not the Cowboys. Also, who you got for the NBA playoffs? I mean, listen, I'm a Knicks fan till I die, so I have to pick the Knicks, even though it seems unlikely, but they had a great season, so I'm going to stick by my Knicks. And I don't know, I don't follow the NFL, so unfortunately the first part of that may as well have been written in Cantonese to me. Any thoughts on the Destiny Lefty arc? Do you think he would want to come on the podcast? I don't want Destiny on the podcast, because he's actually the one person who I was so shocked and disturbed at the fact that he came after me so viciously and aggressively that I actually responded to him a number of times. I think he's just a contrarian at this point. I do. I think his whole thing, he hates the left so much that, like, anything the left does, he's like, I'm against that because the left is doing it. And it's like, okay, I don't fucking care about your contrarianism. It's not interesting. It's really stale. It's really boring. I don't care about it. And he's the guy who, I liked him a lot. And then when I saw him treat me in such bad faith, I was like, why did I ever like this guy? And obviously I never want to talk to him again and never want to be associated with him in any way. Because yeah, he just seems like a really, I don't know, like an unhappy person who has these problems, and he like sort of acts out a lot, where he has weird relationships with other streamers and personalities. And he's like, just really over the top and aggressive in disagreements, and he questions people's motives. And yeah, it's really strange to watch an adult act like he acts. I mean, there's like zero charitability to people he talks to, and now he's just such a contrarian that no, I wouldn't have him on the podcast, because I don't even really view him as an honest actor anymore. The way he treated me and the things he said, and like, it was just so over the top. And I was like, where the fuck did this come from? Because the first time I saw him come after me, I was just watching his stuff because I enjoyed watching his stuff. And then he took a random, like, really gross shot at me. And I was like, what the fuck was that? And anyway, so apparently he's doing this now with fucking everybody on the left. And, everybody's like, holy shit, this guy's kind of crazy. And yeah, that's where we are with him. So I wouldn't have him on the podcast. I don't think he's an honest actor. And I think now sort of everybody's kind of opening their eyes to the fact that this guy has some serious issues. And I mean that as in, like, I think he has serious, like, mental health issues, and he should get help, because I haven't met anybody else in this space who acts like that. There are people who have character flaws and whatever, of course, but he's the first one that I'm like, whoa, something is really fucking off here. So yeah, I just think now he's a contrarian and he's anti-left and he thinks he's like edgy or interesting, and it's just boring and stale. Your channel is called Secular Talk. What do you think about France and Quebec cracking down on freedom of religion? I didn't hear about France or Quebec cracking down on freedom of religion, but I assume you mean, like, I think there was maybe some banning of head coverings or something. Is that one thing that happened? I think that may have happened in France, but I thought that was a while ago. Anyway, listen, I'm a big proponent of freedom. That includes freedom of religion. I don't think any of the religions are accurate, and I disagree with all of them, but it's not my call to make. If you want to live your life dressing a certain way, believing a certain thing, that's your right. So no, I'm in favor of secularism, but I'm not in favor of, like, mandating everybody be secular. You know what I mean? The government must be secular, but you shouldn't force religious people to stop acting religious unless they're taking away other people's rights. So yeah, that's my spiel on that. You have to believe in both freedom and secularism, but also freedom and religion. So you got to balance that. You really need to look into Bo the Fifth Column. Thank you. Can you say, oh, fuck, I just missed that. Can I say shout out to Hayden and then I missed the name? I'm sorry. Props for calling out people went too far with rioting last year. A lot of people on the left didn't, and it drove me up a wall. I respect your consistency. Thank you. I appreciate that. Sometimes when you stick to your principles, it makes people like you more. Sometimes it makes them hate you more, but I could only tell you what I think, and you can agree or disagree, and we could take it from there. You know, you never share much about your personal life while respecting your privacy. Could you share a little? Dating, plans to move, want kids in a house? So again, I just said before, it's not that I have an issue with sharing it. It's that people in my life have an issue with it. And so I'm going to respect their privacy by not commenting on it. You understand? So I would tell you everything, but I'm not approved to tell you everything, so I must respect their privacy. So yeah, I know my personal life is a little bit of a mystery to some people. Unfortunately, it's going to remain that way until I get the green light in some other direction. How much money have you made today? Also, why don't you run for president? Seriously, the left is lacking in bold politicians. You could win. Yeah, I don't want to be a politician. And the amount of money I made today, I don't know, but you guys are making it rain on me, son. God damn. It is raining on me right now. I am like the world's #1 stripper, and you're throwing cash directly in my face. So we'll see when when I'm done with this stream, which will be very soon, by the way. But oh yeah, I actually do. I have to wrap it up now because I got somebody coming again for studio stuff because it shit the bed. So I do have to take off. But I don't know, but it's a lot, and I thank you guys for being such amazing supporters and asking great questions, and being respectful, and thank you for all the positive comments and everything. It makes me feel really great. With your stance on YouTube debate culture, what are your thoughts on Richard Wolff taking a debate with Destiny? I thought that was interesting. I don't think I saw the whole thing. I saw bits and pieces of it. Ideologically, I agree more with Richard Wolff. But in terms of the perception of how the debate went, I think it was sort of split. I think there were times where he seemed a little preachy and like he was lecturing and, wasn't as directly answering questions as he should have been. So I think in terms of the takeaway from it, I could see people thinking he won or he lost. I could see that. But in terms of ideologically, I'm obviously more in agreement with Richard Wolff than I am with Destiny. And, I obviously think Destiny's a bit of a troll and he has some issues and at this point. So anyway, that stuff always gets a lot of clicks and people love to watch it. And all I could do is hope that the fallout from it is positive. Usually what happens is these sorts of things lead to the left ripping each other apart and nothing positive comes out of it. But hopefully the opposite happens, I hope that we can build solidarity and, we can build class consciousness and we can work together and not... The thing that drives me crazy is when people agree 80 or 90% of the time, but they spend all their time talking about how much they hate each other. It's like, nothing good is coming out of this. You guys it's worse for the left when this happens. Again, thanks for all the donations. Somebody asked me about Alan Lichtman. He's gotten every single election year right, including 2016 to 2020. He says infighting only hurts the party that has the White House. Dems have it. Republicans don't. I think I have covered a segment on that guy's predictions because I vaguely remember this recently. Somebody says Steven Donziger I should maybe interview. This is the guy. Oh, he has a case against Chevron in Ecuador. I think Crystal was trying to get in touch with somebody like that. Chris Hedges and Max Blumenthal are nominated for KKF. We're definitely going to have Chris Hedges on. We had Rania Kalik and Abby Martin on for Israel-Palestine recently. So Max is in a very similar lane. But again, I'd like to have him on too. I have nothing against him at all. I think he's a great guy and does some great work. So he'll probably be on eventually too, but it might be a while. Chris Hedges might be a little bit sooner. Steven Crowder has done far more for academia than Noam Chomsky. Changed my mind. I know that's a troll. I know you're joking. I love you guys to death, but I have to go now. Like I said, I got somebody coming to work on the studio a little bit, but this was fun. I hope my studio is fixed soon so I could go back to doing a normal show, but I'm glad that everybody loved this. I love this. Thank you so much for the support. Love you to death. If you want to support the show, not through a live stream, there's a number of ways you can do it. First of all, just like and subscribe everything. I used to not ask for this. Now I have to ask for this because I do feel like YouTube sort of has it out for me and I'm not ranked highly in the algorithm. So please like every video, subscribe, click the bell for the notifications. That helps a lot. That's an awesome way to help. Share the content, whatever you can. And beyond that, you can support. I think it's in the video description box. Again, I don't know because I don't know if the upload defaults go there when it's live stream. But you can support on Patreon. You could pay as little as $1 or $2 a month. I think there's options of like $1, $2, $7, something like that. Pay whatever you want per month. It means the world, even if it's just $1 per month. I guarantee you, I'm telling you, it helps tremendously. And outside of that, if you want to subscribe for $5 a month for Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack, again, get us past Barry Weiss and you'll get an awesome behind-the-scenes video of me and Crystal and what a day in the life is like. The paying subscribers for Crystal Kyle and Friends will get that when we pass Barry Weiss. So everybody, please subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. Link in the video description box. If you don't want to, I still love you. It's okay. You can get the audio version, but please do it if you support the content. Anyway, love you guys very much, and I'll talk to you soon. Maybe you'll see me in another live stream on Wednesday. I don't know. Maybe not. It all depends on what the deal is with my studio and if it's fixed. Number of issues that we're working on. But yeah, love you guys, and I'll talk to you soon. I'm out. Peace.